Okay, Council, thank you for coming in early. We're looking at a 4 p.m. meeting. We do have a public consultation starting at 7 p.m. So we've booked off 4 p.m. to 6:30 for this meeting so that we can have a little turnover time, and IT needs some time to convert some of the hardware and system to our YouTube channel. So, call to order. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq First Nation. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay. Can you hear us there,
No.
Councillor Duran?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. So, number 3 on the approval of the agenda, do you have something to say about that, Eleanor? About 3 or 4A?
Thank you, Richard. Sorry, I just had to pull it up. The grants were provided for information, so the intent is not to discuss that tonight. We'll come back to that on Wednesday. Thank you.
Councillor Trill on the approval of the agenda?
No, I was going to bring up the same thing.
Yeah.
So we're not discussing that
Nope,
this evening.
just parking that. That'll be part of our
Oh,
operational.
that's fine, because usually grants were dealt with after we conclude the operational
Yep.
part of the budget.
So
That's
that
great.
hopefully will be Wednesday night.
Right.
Okay. Need someone to move the approval. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Matart. All those in favor? Councillor Drawn, no problem?
In favor? Yeah.
Okay. Councillor McAleer, do you want to start or just want to defer to Eleanor or Dan? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Just some opening comments here. So the purpose of today's meeting is, as we well know, big part is the focus on the draft of the capital budget details. And I guess, as I guess we all know, capital expenditures drive the borrowing costs and operational costs for future operating budget. The finance team is working to lead the development of improved project management, regular updates and capital projects, as well as initiating sound asset management practices. Improving management capacities in these key areas will greatly enhance our ability to choose investments in our infrastructure that are consistent with our strategic priorities, effectively procured and built, and financially sustainable into the future. And anyway, that's and just broadly on some broad numbers, what you have before you with the packages and the information you received on the weekend. Just broadly speaking, from the time Dan Jenkins, our new CFO, and his team, Betty French in finance, started looking at our capital budget, started at a, as Danny kind of shared with it, and I think it was probably shared here, looking at the past practices of the process of our budgeting process and where it's been. Had we continued on, I guess, past practices, we were setting up for potentially a budget of $90-some million capital budget this year, and that just was recognized as not being sustainable or prudent. So from there, it went to back to our finance committee last week. It got pared down from there again from with Danny and his team working with the department heads. And at the committee level of finance last week, we're working within that $74 to $75 million range. And then since that last finance meeting, what you have before you and what you received in your packages over the weekend is a number down from that again. And it's we've got the capital number in front of us here this evening, gross number of $55,700,000. So what we're hoping, and the direction we tried to suggest to Danny and the department heads is in trying to get the budget from a gross number of what it would, perhaps maybe would have been a $90 million figure down to where it is now, and it was to think of trying to get it that we could stay within not having to increase the tax rate. And that's the lens we kind of asked them to try to focus on. Now, I talked with Danny Jenkins earlier this morning, and the team just not sure, just even with what we have in front of us that we're going to get into discussing here this evening, the 55-7 capital budget, if it's stress tested yet for potentially no tax hikes. So, unless if I've got something wrong there, Danny, or Eleanor, if you want to correct me, but I'll leave it at that. We'll start and go into the summary, and starting with I think probably what makes the most sense is we'll just start with the tabs along the bottom. The different departments, probably starting with Public Works, and have the department heads. I guess Scott Adams would be up first if he's here, and see where we go from there. And Dan or Eleanor, are we good on that?
Okay, Councillor McAleer, thank you very much. So you want to go, yeah, I see what Councillor Twill just wants to get something glitched up there. Good?
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
thank you for your comments, Chair McAleer. The question I have is, and I'm always interested in the process, and when the capital projects went back to Finance Committee, did the Finance Committee pare down the projects? Or was that concluded by senior management and showcased to the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Councillor Twill. That was done by the department heads.
Follow up.
Yeah.
So the department heads, I'm trying to understand this. So the department heads pared down the capital projects in terms of how they see the priorities without any consultation with the standing committees. Am I correct in that?
Councillor McAleer.
Well, I mean, the department heads in getting in whittling down the the project list. There was discussion at the at the committee level. But this the answer to your question is the projects and what you have before you this evening is is from the department heads. And as for discussion, I guess that's what tonight is about. We're going to go through Public Works here, and council as a whole at the committee is going to have say on on these department budgets as we go through them. So that's the process.
Okay, no, just Councillor Beck, you did have your, I want to, go ahead, Councillor Beck.
He can finish off if he wants.
Well, no, his second question.
Are we on,
Yeah. Yeah, well, guys.
What is- okay, can I
just
ask-
let me finish?
Sure.
So it goes from 4 to 6:30, okay? We have to get done with this by 6:30 so that we can start getting ready for the 7 o'clock public consultation. So I'll let Councillor Twill go, but this last question so we can move on.
So, okay. The process before was, it always went back to the standing committee. In this particular case, that did not happen. Secondly, when we refer to senior management, can you define who in senior management was involved with the paring down? Did that include the managers, or was that just the CAO and the directors?
Councillor McAleer.
I'll defer that to CAO Eleanor.
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Twill, the process was, after in finance, we were told to aim for a 0% budget, or a 0% tax increase, I should say. So the process was that we sat down in a room with the managers and the directors, and we looked at trimming down the capital budget to meet that goal.
Councillor Beck.
I just had a couple of questions. It kind of goes back to what Councillor McAleer was asking about on the stress test or whatever terminology we want to call. And maybe this might be, if I could go pass it through to Danny on this, Councillor McAleer, if it's okay. I guess I have two questions. Maybe the first one, Danny, if you could, do we have what the, I remember back at our meeting a week or so ago, you said there is kind of a funding or approval amount that we can do without going to a tax rate increase. Have you ascertained that, or is that number available to us here today before we get going? Or do you have a kind of saying if we approve X amount of million of dollars, that would mean no rate increase? Have you been able to verify that?
We don't have a, through the chair to Councillor Beck, we do not have a hard number today, but we're anticipating that this capital budget discussion in terms of looking at projects and talking about priorities will extend into our meeting on Wednesday. And the hope is that between now and Wednesday's meeting, we'll be able to do a detailed calculation. We did do Betty and her staff did a calculation on Friday with some insight from the manager of the utility, Richard McEwen, who pointed out that most of the capital projects, the cost of those in terms of operational costs, interest and depreciation, are borne within the utility budget. So they don't really impact directly the additional borrowing costs because they're recovered through user fees, through the fees for the water and the wastewater management. So with those two factors in mind, we felt that coming forward with the 55 was a reasonably good number to start with. And if we back out the water and sewer capital projects from that, we're probably not wildly off what we would have been last year and what Betty and her team have added to the budget for this year. So short answer is we don't have a hard number for you, but we do hope to have something more definitive on Wednesday.
Okay, just second question. Yeah, so it kind of goes back to, I believe Councillor Tweel asked the question last meeting, and it kind of goes back into process too, where we've been presented with proposals for both capital and operational. How do we go about deciding what gets in and what gets out? Like, is it like we're given kind of a, here's what we think, and is it sort of a consensus approval, and then for those that we may be in disagreement on or whatever, we debate those individually? Is that how it works? I'm just trying to understand a little bit better, and so that we have a better understanding of how we're ultimately going to decide. I mean, we've all been given rationale, we've all been given information. All of them are meritorious, within, no one's sitting there saying, oh, that's a terrible idea. It's just, but we got to fit it all in. So ultimately, how do we come to decide what stays and what goes? And I would direct that to whoever might, either the chair or to you, Danny, whoever that might be.
Certainly through the chair to Councillor Beck. I mean, from my perspective, those are decisions that are left to council in terms of the priorities that are established. The hope is that management would bring forward a list of projects that we believe is manageable within the financial capacity that we have, in consultation with the department heads and considering the operational requirements. But I think it's suffice to say that we have a long list of projects that we believe are worthy, valuable, but we do have a limited budget. It's kind of like we'd like to have Canada Goose jackets for all our children, but that may not be in the budget, right? So it really is about making choices between one project versus the other. Maybe taking a project that is a good idea, we had slated for next year, but maybe moving into a future fiscal year. So there are choices to be made both in terms of what really are priorities for council and residents, and also, when those projects may be brought on and how it fits. We had a fairly heavy year this year for Parks and Recreation with the Simmons project last year and this year. But the Parks and Recreation budget is probably a little bit lighter, coming after this fiscal year. If there are projects being talked about in terms of turf fields and pickleball courts and, a number of things, some of which might happen this year. But so you have to balance the wish list with the financial capacity. Otherwise, you impact your tax rates. So, but those decisions are really council's in the end, based on, hopefully, on recommendations from staff.
Okay. Councillor Yankoff. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just have a quick question before we start. Just in terms of procedure, I know every time we put a resolution on the floor, and I probably should know this answer after 6 years of council, but I still find it a bit confusing. So there's no resolution tonight, we're having discussion. So I'm just wondering, do we have amounts of times that we're allowed to ask questions? Or like from a procedural perspective, today it's just open. You can ask as many questions as you want. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're just trying, we got a 2.5 hour span. So, we have a number of budgets to go through. And that's why I'd like to continue moving on, because we haven't even got to Public Works. But those questions that you have can come up during the different budgets. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Councillor McAleer, did you want to?
Yeah, if it could, thank you, Mayor Brown. If it could, the CAO Eleanor has an overview that I think would be helpful for us to just hear her present in advance of going through our department requests here, the budget.
Is she going to go over the summary? Is that what you're going to do, Eleanor, CAO?
No, thank you, Your Worship. So
Go
we'll
ahead.
open up, if we could, with the similar slides to last time that we're here, recognizing that different members of the public may be calling in or watching tonight, to center us back into the budget process again, before moving on to Dan and the managers presenting different aspects of the capital budget. What Dan and the chair have proposed tonight is that the items be spoken about, the larger ticket items, and how you can approach it instead of voting on every single item in the budget, is pull out the exception-based ones. So if there's something in there that you feel that needs to be discussed, you pull that out and you deal with that item. But the rest, you just move forward with consensus. That's usually the easiest way to move through this, or you go through one by one, in which case we might not get through things tonight.
Okay, so let's just keep it moving. Councillor Twill, you can ask your questions as we go through.
Just on the philosophy of what Dan brought up.
His philosophy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He talked
wrap it
about
up, please.
philosophy, depreciation in finance meetings. You talked about depreciation, and that was never really discussed before in terms of how we arrive at the budget being recommended to council. And I'm quite intrigued by that. And I was wondering if you can give me a synopsis of what exactly do you mean by depreciation?
Just give an example of a piece of equipment.
Sure. So depreciation is the accounting budgeting tool that's used to assign the value of an asset, let's say a pickup truck for Parks and Recreation. If we pay $70,000 for that and it's going to last us 10 years, rather than expensing the whole $70,000 truck in the year you buy it, you expense it $7,000 per year for 10 years. So it matches the value of the service of that asset over time. And although it may not have been talked about in council, depreciation is a mechanism that has been baked into the budgeting process. I don't think it's been talked about at the capital budgeting stage very much. I showed you the graph in terms of the gap and the growth in the capital budget in the past 5 years and the gap between what we actually spend and what we budget for. So I think to some extent that may have been an oversight, but it always has been baked into the process, but there hasn't been that kind of exponential growth in what we plan to spend. But we haven't had the same big growth in what we actually spend, it's what we plan to spend. So it hasn't come back to bite us to any meaningful degree yet. But if we are making a plan to spend money, we should consider the consequences of doing that. And if our plan is too high, we should be realistic with it so that all the costs are reflected fairly.
Okay.
That helps.
Let's go with summary 2024, 2025. Is that where we start first? Is that where you want to go? Yeah, just one sec. Are you going with that first, Dan? Or are you just going with this Budget Council meeting number 2 draft? Okay. Okay, quickly, Councilor Bernard?
It's just a quick question. So some projects that I see on the docket here that were approved last year that didn't get done. And I see some new numbers. So I'm wondering, for example, if there was 550,000 approved for the project, and this year there's 760,000 in it, so I'll give you the example. It's an elevator in Hillsborough Community Center.
Counselor, why don't we wait for that for Public Works? No.
Yeah, I just want to know if money that's transferred over, do you carry that money over? So it's actually $160 extra dollars? Because I noticed it's budgeted at 760. So I'm just wondering for all the other line items, was there a carryover, or are we looking at it like it's new money?
Yeah, so we wanted to break out the project approval, so the project is an elevator for that building.
Yeah.
And council's approved that project. We didn't spend it last year, and it's not like if the price changed 60,000, we just have to budget to spend 60,000 in the difference this coming year. We still have to spend the 750 or the 650, whatever the number is, in the next 12 months. So that's what we budget for. So we had a plan last year. The plan didn't turn out. We didn't spend any money on it. So now we have a plan for the next 12 months, and that's what we put in the capital budget. So, and that's part of the confusion. I think a lot of the department heads were not on the same page in terms of the carry forward amounts, and it got murky and gray. And this is really kind of a cleaner approach in terms of approving the project, and then, okay, that's the project we're going to do. When are we going to do it, and over what year? So the rink, we approved what turns out to be a $36 million project, and we're going to spend that over 3 years. So you don't budget for the whole thing to be spent in the first 12 months. You budget that over 3 years, and that's, so we have an idea of what we have to come up with in terms of financing and interest costs, so.
Okay. Okay, and those questions, again, can come up under each of the tabs that are there. Public Works, Parks, Recreation, Eastlink, Carry, so forth. Okay? Ready to go?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, as discussed at the last meeting, this is the first time that the public has been invited into the budget process here with council, and it's open. So just to bring everyone back to the same page, tonight we're covering the draft capital budget that's under review. And we've had some budget goals throughout the process. The first, to demonstrate council's commitment to transparency, accountability, and trust, as outlined in the strategic plan. To implement governance and civic engagement. And in debating and approving the budget, council follows their guiding principles and the 10 commitments while implementing the 4 pillars in the strategic plan. And that council budgets for enhanced community-centric government, balancing the needs of neighborhoods while taking a whole of Charlottetown planning perspective. So these are the 4 pillars here: community building and placemaking, to enhance Charlottetown as a great place to live and a destination for visitors; governance and civic engagement, to create a high performance and responsive local government; inclusive economic growth, to foster inclusive growth related in terms of people in our economic sectors; and infrastructure and environment, to address infrastructure challenges in our growing city and the issues arising from climate change adaptation and mitigation. So here we are in the process, and if you joined us last week, you'll see that there's an extra box because we set up an extra meeting for tonight just to give ourselves a little bit more time to go through the capital budget. And you'll see that there's another special meeting on Wednesday, potentially to cover any additional capital and operational budget items. And there's also an open house that will be held, and then final budget on March 28th. So the last time that we met, there were some questions about over the years of the approval dates for capital budgets. So you can see since 2014, there's a real mix. Some of the dates are in February, some are in March, and we have one that managed to make it across the finish line in January. So we recognize this year we are a little late, and we will definitely be trying next year to move it up even further. And maybe we'll beat that January date. We'll see. So the draft capital budget was developed based on the results of the October-November public budget survey, direction via consensus received from Council at the November budget workshop. Council's identified overall budget priorities, the city corporation's ability to deliver the capital projects, and mitigating future budget impacts and risks. So during day 2 of the November budget workshop, Council agreed that individual members of Council would send their top 5 overall budget priorities to myself to be summarized. The top 5 themes included public safety, infrastructure upgrading, parks and recreation, arts and culture, and transit. And some of the other themes mentioned also included communications, information, technology, and climate action. So you can see public safety was mentioned the most time by individual elected officials. That was 10 members of council that raised that. So I'll now hand it over to our Director of Finance and Corporate Services, CFO, and the department heads to walk through the capital budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Council, I'm very pleased that the department heads and the leaders in the city staffing side were able to wrestle what was a very big document with a lot of work done into projects and projects in progress, and we've been able to kind of clarify what the picture needs to look like for the next 12 months or next fiscal year. I would like to kind of point out that we've really focused on the next 12 months in terms of what projects that we need to action and the money that we will need to spend in the next 12 months. There is some of that will get pushed out into the 25-26 capital budget and beyond. Where we've changed the priorities, move them out a little bit. We tried to identify the impact on future fiscal periods as well. But I will say that in terms of looking at that 25-26 capital budget and beyond, at this point, I wouldn't rely too heavily on those numbers just yet. We'll try to refine those as we go towards March 28th. But most of our focus has been trying to wrestle that, looking at the next 12 months in terms of determining what the priorities we feel that council should be moving forward with. So with that, I would like to call on Scott Adams, the manager of Public Works, to do a high-level review of his projects. Yeah. I have asked the department heads to focus on the projects that are $250,000 and above because of, in the interest of time. But there will be time, following to answer questions on specific projects or initiatives that you feel you'd like to have some coverage on as well. But I think the idea in terms of trying to make some choices, because there will be choices to be made by council, is if you get an overall view of what all the projects are, and then you kind of have the information to say, okay, this project in comparison to that project this is a $5 million project versus a $3 million project, and we can kind of play one off against the other. But if we don't get all the information about the big projects up front, it's really hard to have a good discussion in terms of, one priority versus another. So we wanted to focus on trying to get the big picture out first, and then hopefully we can focus in on some of the more detailed questions as we proceed with the process. Scott?
Dan, just a point of clarification. So 24, 25, you go down to capital budget, total 55 million.
Yes.
So mine is 11, let's say 11.2 million, because that's water and wastewater utility, and he's already self-financing through through his. So instead of 55, we're dealing with 44.
Essentially, yes, the net impact, and we kind of budgeted somewhere in the
Yeah.
range of 30
Yeah.
currently, so there will still be some movement, so we're hoping that as we bring some focus to some of these larger projects over today's meeting and Wednesday's meeting, we'll be able to kind of.
Yeah, but
build-
it's 44 million, and we're not going out and borrowing $44 million after this is approved.
No.
We take out the money, we draw down the money or the funding as we award each project, and then there's also progress payments that are made out over the length of the project, so.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at Simmons Arena, that's a 3-year project, so 36 million or 30 million didn't go out in 1 year. It was, and it will continue after the project's done, so I want to make it clear, we're not borrowing 44 million, or, 44 million right away. Okay.
Right. No,
Okay.
agreed.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, council. So I guess, do we want to go to the summary page on the big screen?
Tracy, could?
Did you want Scott's computer? So just unplug that and plug it in here.
Or we can just do it on Dan's, doesn't matter to me. Let's go close this. No worries. I just wanted to close all this, but. So I got no notifications. There we go. Okay. Close.
Tracy, can you feed from this HDMI cable to the screen? Okay, so I've taken the cord from mine and given it to Scott, so he's gonna broadcast directly from his.
Is it all right there, Rory? We're all working together?
All right. So as mentioned, we'll just go through I'll go through each section and talk about anything that's over the $300,000 range. But please feel free to stop me if there's any questions along the way. So where we start getting to the bigger line items are under the second area, which is our municipal buildings. The first big one for $300,000 is the City Hall upgrades. This is a roof strengthening from the inside project. It was we noticed this when there was engineers doing inspecting the work, and we were doing the roof replacement outside. This is another item, another phase of that project. You're familiar, everyone's aware of the Brownfield redevelopment initiative. The next one, big one, is the Hillsborough Park Community Center upgrades, and as Councillor Bernard alluded to earlier today, this is the elevator section, elevator addition to this facility. And then that's all anything above 300,000 for this area. So I guess we can take questions one on this section.
Did you want
Could I
to
ask a
finish
question?
first, or do you want to?
It's up to you. It might be easier to go section by section, I think, so that it doesn't get lost.
So we'll go Councillor Bernard and then Councillor Twill. Okay, just let go. Councillor Bernard.
Can I get in line too? Thank you.
Yep. And then Councillor Bernard is after Councillor Twill.
So I'm just wondering, Harts Hall, I know it's a heritage designated building. We've been trying to move it off the main highway for the last 3 or 4 years. Scott, you'll be well aware of that. You've had meetings with the province that they were going to partner funding. We had 400,000 approved in the budget last year to have it moved. And I'm wondering why now we're saying no money to move it, no money to fix it, and no money in the future years. That ain't good.
Your worship, through the Council Bernard. So when we went through this process last week, this budget I'm putting forward to today was kind of worst case scenario, and I had kind of two principles that I went through. One, it didn't impact our operation side of things, so the materials that we purchase under capital for our seasonal summer staff or winter staff. And the other thing is we didn't cut anything that was already committed to funding or a project that's already underway. So we were asked to trim as much as we could going into this process. And so because we hadn't committed anything or haven't started the process on anything on this Harts Hall, we removed it. Again, it could be future funded or it could be back on, but that's why it was cut. It was because we had no commitments and it's not an impact to our operations staff.
Councillor Twill, and then I'm going. Yeah, but you can come back to it because we get a lineup.
He can go.
Let's just keep going with it. You go right with yours, and then we'll come back. And then
Well-
Councillor Tron. What's yours?
On brownfield development, has the city of Charlottetown entertained the thought of reaching out to the province, to the feds, to see if they would participate in a cost-shared arrangement? FCM has been involved with brownfield development for decades now, and have we explored that opportunity?
Through the chair to Councillor Twill, yeah, I believe on that particular project, there is actually partner funding from both the feds and the province on that one.
Okay, Councillor Bernard. Oh, sorry, no. Councillor Drawn. That's what I meant. Can you hear us?
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Yep, go ahead.
I'd like to ask a question on line item 23, the Sherwood Rec Hall Master Plan. I think in the fall or last summer, we were looking at a plan to see where we could go, or the house beside it was going to see if we can get it moved due to the oil impact that we had there. I know we started plans, so unlike Council Bernard, when you look at it, zero funding for this year and then zero for the next 5 years. How is that going to play out, Mr. Adams? Or did we start? Did we stop? Where are we at? Could you answer that? Thank you.
Mr. Adams.
Through your worship to Councillor Durand. So there are a lot of line items that don't show future forecasting, even though there is a summary amount that those columns weren't completed. Now, mind you, again, as I alluded to Councillor Bernard, I went through this budget looking at those two kind of key principles or two ideals where as long as it didn't impact our operations or wasn't already committed to, and by committed I mean we didn't have any contracts issued or signed or agreements issued or signed with individuals, then we would remove those budgets or remove that project for this year in order to bring down that capital budget as to be presented here tonight. So it's not saying that it can't be added to future years. We did, again, put it forward, but we had to reduce our budget to try to get it within the realm of where we can afford to spend.
So, Councillor Drawn, I can't see you, but do you want a quick follow-up?
Yes, please. And thank you for that explanation, Mr. Adams. But like I said, personally, I've been asking about this for a number of years. I mean, the building has been moved there from the airport in 1962, and you know we've patched it up. It's halfway decent, but there are some concerns about air quality. You know, we've been adding it to it. We put in for a generator for emergencies, that it would be a warming center for the community. But if we continuously don't make an effort to put any plans in place, I just don't know. Like, we want to drop the budget. We don't want to raise taxes. But again, something like this, where a project has been in the hopper for a while now, and just to not have anything in there or for future development is just, you know, it's troubling for me. But, you know, I just wanted to express that, and I guess we'll have to look at it when it comes time to approve the budget. But thank you for your explanation.
Okay. Councillor Bernard.
Thank you. So Scott, I'm not blaming you, but I'm going to go back to you on that, on the Hertz Road, because I know you've had multiple meetings with the province. I thought you said there was no funding agreements. I know of a funding agreement was in place, so maybe that's not what you said, because they were going to help move the building. So it was going to come off the roadway, because I think it's like 5 feet. On St. Peter's Road, where they made the new 4-lane highway, they moved their buildings. The other thing that bothers me is again, it's a heritage building, and it's getting dilapidated. So here's another city inventory building that we've committed to fixing up and moving, and it took 3 years to get to that point. And now what I see is, we're not going to bother doing it. We're going to cut that. So we're back to square one. So all the meetings we've had, you would have had with the province, all the discussions on this, and now we're saying we're not going to do anything, unless that changes.
Through your worship to Councillor Bernard. So yes, and we even have drawings and tender documents ready for it. Again, it was we were asked to look through and see where we could trim, and because we hadn't made any commitment in terms of signing a contract to have the work done,
Right.
it was an item that could be removed. Again, that's why this budget is here for discussion with the with council. And in terms of the funding, there was never any written or firm commitment. It was a discussion with the chief engineer of the province, and they will likely still kick in some money when we go to move it. It's just we never have been able to get anything in writing from those folks on that, what that commitment was. I've heard 20, heard 25,000. It was nothing ever firmed up.
That would be the conversation we would have had. Because I'm told he said he committed.
Yes, so yes, we had a conversation about it, but again, nothing in writing. Everything that you'll see in column L, that's partner funded source, we have either a letter in hand from the funder saying the amount of funding, and that's why, again, it was 20 or 25. It was going to come down to the cost of how much it did cost us to move it at the end of the day.
Okay. Councillor McCabe. No, just, Councillor, we're having a conversation here. We have to ask the questions because there are other councillors. I know we want to drill into it, but if we want to add something to the budget, then that's a process that we can do at the end. Like, if we want to add some projects and discuss it, let's have that discussion. But I want to try to keep this moving. Councillor McCabe.
I'm piggybacking, I think, off Councillor Bernard, because you talk about a commitment that there was no commitment made. But did we not already approve this money in our previous capital budget? Like last year, I recall Hearts Road was in that. I recall Sherwood Hall was in the budget that we already approved as a council. So how is it now not, if it was already approved in previous money, how's it not here now as already approved and committed money? And maybe I'm wrong, so that's what I'd like a clarification. I was pretty confident that that was already in our previous approved budget, so I don't even know why or how it's taken out, even though we haven't started there, because we already did vote. So if someone could help me understand that.
Scott? Or do you want to address that?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor McCabe. And I think that's a really good example of what the challenge has been this year in terms of clarifying. So the project is approved. the council gave the green light to do the project a year ago, but the project didn't happen. So there is a difference between the projects that we'd like to do and the projects that we're able to do. Whether there's not contractors, whether we don't have capacity, from a staffing standpoint. So that's part of that gap. Okay, so we're trying to narrow the gap. I did mention earlier, but this kind of highlights the fact that we're trying to focus on this year's capital expenditure plan. So the work we're actually going to get done this year, and that's not to say that it won't come next year or the year following, but we're trying to be realistic about what we're able to do in the next 12 months and prioritize those projects that we think have strategic importance and so on.
Hold on.
Sorry, just for clarity. So even though we would have seen projects and previously approved projects, this is more of what you're snapshotting to say is a realistic plan for what you see happening this year or asking us to approve based on consultation with your managers, discussion at senior management level, and now you're coming forward to say this is more practical.
Yeah.
Just so I'm getting my head around.
It's less a honey-do list, if you will, in terms of things you'd like to get done at home, and more about what we're actually going to get done in the next 12 months.
Yeah. Thank you there, Councilor McCabe, because you're right. Sherwood Hall upgrades, 15,000, and then we have Hertz Hall at 400,000. So that's disappeared because the manager made a recommendation to trim the budget. Councilor Bernard.
And the upgrades to Sherwood Hall may have been made. I don't know, there's money in the budget that was approved, so Bobby would probably have a better idea. But I know, when you're having a project approved, I've never heard before, just not doing it anymore, once we've approved the previous year because it never got done. So whether COVID slowed that down, I don't know. But I would ask to have that put back in the budget because it was already approved.
Okay, that's something we can add. And Scott, could you tell us, Sherwood Hall upgrades completed from last year's budget? It was 15,000.
I believe that was a ramp and door, and I think our crews are going to handle the ramp here very soon. So
Oh,
it's supposed to be
so
done
it's to be
this
done.
year. Yeah.
Okay.
So okay.
Yeah, okay. We can move on. So just park that, Councilor Bernard, what you just mentioned. And are you saying the same thing there, Councilor Duran?
Definitely, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Okay, let's go to traffic, parking, smart intersection, new traffic lights. That's the next section. Correct?
That's correct. So there are nothing over 300,000 in this item or in this area, but if there is a particular line item that you would like to discuss, I'd be more than happy to discuss.
Councilor Beck?
Yeah, are we on the lines 38 to 46?
Correct.
Oh, we're not on to
No,
50,
we're 38, 38, 46.
38 to 46. Okay, I don't
Okay,
have one.
Councilor Twill.
So in this section of the Public Works budget, we're looking at lights, traffic lights. I would also take that this would be flashing lights as well, where we have concerns, pedestrian traffic, people with disabilities attempting to cross streets in our city where they find it very difficult. The traffic is just not yielding to pedestrian traffic or people in wheelchairs. For example, there was an article in The Guardian this past week, a gentleman in a wheelchair, he's been lobbying for a number of years. I've attempted to lobby in his behalf as well. Felt his message wasn't being listened to, so he went to the Guardian and did an interview. So can you tell me where in the budget, if we're to install flashing lights, where exactly is that expenditure illustrated in the budget?
Your worship, through to Councillor Twill, line item 44, pedestrian crossings.
2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have about $50,000 in
No,
there.
no. Councilor Twill, again, he'll follow up, but I want to go to Councilman Tardy. Yeah.
Just a quick point of clarification.
Oh, I have to talk about locations, do
Yeah,
we?
just 1 second. Councilman Tardy.
Sorry, just a quick point of clarification to the manager. I think you're referencing going projects at 300,000, but I believe you said 250. Was that the threshold? Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Twill, like again, conversation's great to have, but we got
No,
a number of
what?
tabs.
I appreciate we're under a time constraint, but you know what? We could have done this 8 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So
okay,
you
keep it going.
can't lay the trip on council.
No, we're not laying the
No,
trip.
I know, but
No, no.
you know what? I'm not
We'll
going
have
to be
more
rushed.
meetings, we'll have more meetings.
Okay, I'm not
Okay,
going to
go
be
ahead.
rushed. I'm here to do a job. I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
do the job properly.
Yeah.
So the question is, again, what you've allotted for here, will this address and meet the needs of, for example, that issue that was illustrated in The Guardian on Saturday? I mean, this man is scared. I mean, there's been a number of scares where people are trying to cross University Avenue. I think, Scott, you said it yourself, 30,000 cars on University Avenue a day. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's one of the busiest streets in the city of Charlottetown, and it's not pedestrian friendly.
Okay.
And I know, the response come from City Hall was, A, we have to follow the national standards, and B, we have a University Avenue plan. That's all well and good. That's 2 and 3 years away. So I have to understand that when we're dealing with the budget, this is the time to deal with that. So I can talk to this gentleman who's trying to get across University Avenue, and he's petrified.
Yeah,
I
okay.
need to have those conversations.
Yeah. And you can submit that to the chief engineer? Yeah, oh, it was already submitted? Okay, okay, it's a priority. Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, staying with the theme of 250 and above, so just got the line 52, Pownell Street structure.
No, we're not there yet.
Oh.
No, we're still on traffic and pedestrian signals. We're going to move.
Well, that's 50. Anyway, I thought we're 250 and above.
Yeah. For traffic lights or for pedestrian traffic lights?
How many will that do?
I believe it's around half a dozen that will do for the
Priorities.
flashing lights. Yeah,
And
and we
Richard.
have a number, like we have a list of requests and we review them based on each individual merits and then they get ranked
Yeah.
based on, there's a criteria and it gives us a score for each section.
Okay.
So that's how we choose which ones get priority.
Okay, yeah, just put it on the list and then we'll follow up on it. Park aids. Major, this is the one I want to look at too.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this one's the Pownell Street Parquet rehab. Starting to show its age, and there's going to be probably a few years worth of maintenance to be done, capital maintenance, I should say, on the facility. This year, we're going to try to pare it down to about $2 million worth of work, and then reevaluate where we are next year once that work's done. And then the other line item, bike share, there is a error in this, I do apologize. So that bike share program, the capital budget, it should have been 700 requests and at 350 are partner funding. So for a capital budget net of 350.
Councillor McAleer?
So just back to the Pownell Street one, again, it's a large ticket number, 2.5, like 2 million, and again, trying to keep with the theme of what where CFO Dan is trying to get us in our budgeting process. Like, obviously you feel it's real that $2 million worth of work can get done in the next fiscal year on that with, I'm assuming there's probably a tendering piece and that sort of thing that would be involved in that?
Your Worship, through the councillor, through to the chair. Yes, definitely. So the tender document's almost ready. It won't take them very long to go through $2 million when you're doing concrete and steel work. Like I say, that's why it's got to be done over. We're just trying to stretch the budget so it's not so much of an impact in 1 year. So this will be phase one of a couple years probably, but we'll know more once we see the pricing of this round on how far our dollar goes.
Deputy Mayor?
Oh, okay, I will ask that. The bike share program, Scott made a correction, it's 700,000. What is that? I don't remember anything about that. I remember some talk about it through a Public Works meeting. But are you able to just give me a little background on that one?
Certainly. So, Your Worship, through the Deputy Mayor. Yes, so this is a program that we were looking at. We did issue an RFP last year. hoping that funding would come at that point in time, but we did not get funded for that project. But essentially, probably a city-owned, it would be a city-owned bike share program where you'd have bikes and stations around various key spots of downtown and filter out further from that, of course, where an individual can go using an app, unlock a bike, take it for a bike ride, whether they're taking it down the street to go to a meeting or just to a friend's, and then you can drop it off at any other bike station around the city, lock it back in, and then your time is done. And so it's just you're seeing this a lot in a lot of urban centers, these types of programs, and we thought it was talked at Public Works, and commitment was made previously, and now we're looking at the funding. So it's more attainable now to try to get it off the ground this year.
Okay, Councilor Ramsey. No. Just go with it.
Thank you for that, Scott. The Deputy Mayor and I discussed that there. We didn't know who was going to ask the same question. But at the same time, so this has nothing to do with e-scooters or anything along that line. This is just for ordinary bicycles, pedal bicycles, is what you're saying, I think?
Your worship, through to the councillor. So it could be a combination of just regular bikes and then pedal assisted bikes. So you still have to cycle, but there's electric battery in it that helps you up hills and things like that if you get a little tired. So that'd be a combination of those types of bikes around the city. That would be city infrastructure.
Councilor Doyle.
Yeah. On the expenditure for the structural rehabilitation for the Pownell Parkade, if you look at, say, the Queen Street Parkade, we got to a point where we felt that the capital expenditure was far-reaching and was too expensive, and we reached a point in time that maybe we should go out to the private sector. So has there been any thoughts or any consideration given to following the same strategy with the Pownell Parkade as what we executed with the Queen Street Parkade? I mean, the rehabilitation dollars aren't going to decrease. I would suggest that in the years to come, they're going to increase. And when do we come at that, arrive at that point, or at that juncture where, do you know what, it's costing the taxpayers too much, maybe we need to go out to the private sector and try to implement the same strategy? So $2 million this year, it's probably going to be another $2 million next year, and the costs are going to continue to climb. So I guess we need to have that discussion as a council. Like, do we bite the bullet and say, let's go out to the private sector and see what can be, to see what the expressions of interest are, as opposed to the city of Charlottetown continuing throwing, millions and millions of dollars only maybe at, 2 or 3 years down the road. Yeah, I think we'll go to the private sector. Like, why don't we make that determination now and have those discussions now? To my mind, that's being forward-thinking and thought-provoking, as opposed to waiting till the point we're at the no return and we spent maybe $5 or $6 million.
Yeah, so those discussions started with, we had Mr. Tweel in, he gave a presentation, and he's coming back to us, so that's going on for Queens. Oh, I know. Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah.
When do we arrive at that point in
Okay.
time where we have those discussions?
Yeah. Okay. We'll get back to it. Just Councilor Matard?
No, I want an answer.
Well, I don't think he can give an answer because we're dealing with one project at a time, so let's deal with it. I know what you're talking.
The Pownell Parkade, I'd like some kind of a synopsis.
No, this figure here, Pownell Street Structural Rehabilitation, is 2.5, right? That's what we're looking at. So that has to be done whether we unload it this year or next year. It has to be done.
I understand that. But the point I'm trying to make is 2.5 this year, probably another 2.5 or more next year, and then the capital costs, the rehabilitation is not going to diminish, it's going to increase. So When do we arrive at that juncture to say, you know what, council, maybe we should parallel what took place up in Queen Street?
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to drive home here, and I'd like some direction.
Yeah, the direction is council will make that direction. We'll make that call and then forward it on to our chief engineer and team. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. I'm going back to the bike program for a minute. I chair Public Works, and I knew that we talked about it, but I don't recall that there was any commitment at that time. I thought it was going to be more information coming back to us and help me understand that. I think a $350,000 investment when we're trying really hard to find funding. There's a lot of things that still had to be discussed with that, right? Liability, who's going to enforce helmet, who's going to run the program. So for me, when I see a $350,000 budget line item, when we're really struggling to figure out some of our other previous commitments, that one is one that I would maybe ask that we look at to see if that makes the most sense for this year.
Chief Engineer?
Your worship, through to Councillor McCabe. So, again, if that's something we want to kick down the road, we can always review that and see if the funding, can be reallocated. Those are questions we can definitely ask. Again, some of the liability standpoints, there's always already best practices out there. It's just finding the one that fits the best for our model and run with it. So I don't think it's a challenge that we couldn't overcome to get this out the door this year. It's just a little bit of legwork that needs to be done to do it.
Councillor Bedard.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess if you wait long enough in the queue, sometimes your questions get answered already. So I'll just echo comments by Councillor McCabe. One that I was asking was, who will the city assume the operational support of the bike share program, or would this be offered through third party? There's all kinds of things that need to be addressed from an operational perspective. Which department would even own and operate this if that was the case? So I think, to the tune of $350,000 at this year's capital, not fully understanding, it sounds very clear that not many councillors understand this program very well. Sounds like a great program, but not really sure we understand it. I would be in favor of deferring this to a later capital year while we understood better. Thank you.
So there's 350 from the AT fund, correct there, Chief Engineer?
Yes, Your Worship.
So is that possible to defer to that?
We can always ask the question.
Because I think the 350 was specifically for this project.
That's correct.
Councillor Beck?
Yeah, I would echo those comments. I guess the other thing too is this whole app unlocking, dropping off around. We're currently experiencing some growing pains with the e-scooter program, which we are still ongoing discussions. The owner of that company has been great to deal with, but we still have things we have to work out. And I think we could work out those issues, and maybe some of the learnings could be simultaneously applied to any potential future program. The other thing I'd be a little bit concerned about too is, we do have 3 bike companies within very close proximity. We have one up on Queen Street, another one in University Avenue, another one down here in Queen Street. I'm not really sure if we should be getting into this. I think there's just too many things. That would be a future discussion as well too, that I think we would have to look at. So I would like to see this removed for this year for sure. Until we get some of our other ducks in line. I think one thing we learned from the e-scooter program is that maybe we should have some things better in place before we proceed with the program. Not to say that it was ill-intentioned by any means, it's just that I think we learned some things from that. It was a pilot that was tried, and there were some things learned, but I think we should apply that to this program as well. So I would support the other sentiments about removing that from this year's budget.
Mr. Dan Jenkins, CFO.
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Beck and Matart and McCabe. I think this highlights one of the problems with coming to a capital budget meeting once a year or 3 or 4 times within a 2 or 3 week period to make decisions on strategic investments. So the direction we'd like to go as a finance group is to go as kind of a continual process. So we're evaluating projects continually. Priorities will change. We'll come up with new initiatives that really make a lot more sense than doing, a project that we were looking at. So rather than saying, once the project's approved, come hell or high water, we're going ahead with that, that it be a continual process of weighing options and determining what the priorities will be. The other thing I wanted to say is that once we approve a capital budget on March 28th, it is a plan, and that doesn't mean that it's cast in stone and can't be revised in 2 months or 6 months or 10 months. So we can reevaluate constantly, and as we get a clearer picture of each project that's underway and where we are with funding and how much we've spent, and we can monitor that on an ongoing basis, and hopefully this will become more of a continual process of improvement and making better investments as we go. So just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, Councillor Bernard.
Yeah, and I kind of disagree a little bit with Dan, because I think if you have a project that's approved, unless there's a good reason, you shouldn't go ahead with it. Unless there's a good reason, then council can revisit that. But I look at this and I see $350,000 to go to a bike share program that we don't have all the information on. I would think it's more of a commercial entity, but yet we've taken the $400,000 out of our own building that needs to be moved away from the busy highway. The province has told us that, and it was approved. So there's an example of a project approved, but yet there's something else. You wonder how that got in there. $350,000. I understand that the committee never approved it. So there's $350,000 where you have a building the city owns that's getting dilapidated, needs a roof, needs siding, and all that was going to be taken care of when they put it on a new foundation. So I'd ask that $350,000 moves back towards the Hearts Hall.
Well, no, we can park just 1 second, because Councillor Duran can tell you that, he has Sherwood Rec Hall that he had 15,000 last year, and I guess we're going to get some fix up in the ramp, maybe a new
They're
door.
fixing that now. They're spending
Yeah,
that now.
but we don't know what the 15,000, if it will be the 15,000. But the 350,000,
But we're talking.
do we know if the province will allow us to use that for something else?
Again, we don't know that until we ask the question. And just for everyone's clarification, this program was on the capital budget for last year, and it did come back through the committee this year as well as part of the capital budget request. And I know it's been since November. I think it was in November when we brought this budget through the committee, and so that's probably why there's some. It's been a few months since we've looked at this budget, so I think that's where
I
maybe
have
some of
last
this
year's budget
confusion.
here. I don't see it.
No.
not last year's
This
budget.
year's budget. They started in November. Is that what you were saying, Scott?
No, it's not last year's budget.
Yeah, I'd have to double check then. I thought that was in it, but it did go through the committee this year.
Okay, Councillor Twill.
Just to clarify that, Scott, we might have talked, but I don't recall, and I stand to be corrected, that we had recommended this as one of the priorities for the Public Works Committee, because there's a number of factors, which we just heard here tonight, competing with the private sector. We have 3 local businesses here that, huge investment. They hire people, they pay taxes, make a contribution to our community. I would think if there's any type of bike sharing program, I would like to see those 3 particular members of our business community involved with such a strategy. But nonetheless, it's a philosophical thing. I don't recall moving this forward, Scott. So again, with all due respect, and again, I could be dead wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Thank you.
But I don't recall moving this forward.
Again, Mr. Adams, so last year, Parnell Parkade, we budgeted 2.5 million, right? How much did we spend?
We only spent about 100,000, just shy of that, for engineering. And again, so we put in 2.5 for this budget. We were asked to cut where we could cut and make
Yeah.
recommendations. So again, we can cut a little bit off it and spread it out over the future
Yeah,
years.
I-
So there's a lot of these items in this budget that when we brought it forward, we were asked to see how we could what's our worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And that's what's presented here today is the worst case scenario
If,
for
if you
budget.
spent 100,000 of 2.5 million, you know, if you looked at a million or 1.5 for the garage, parking garage, again, we keep putting this on every year. If it's not Pearl, it's Queen. Anyway, something to think about. Okay, next one is land acquisitions. 1.1 million.
Thank you, Worship. So this is dealing around the Eastern Gateway and the event grounds property.
So are we buying property down at the Eastern Gateway?
We need it for the roadway, that's correct.
Okay. Councillor Twill?
So, Scott, help me here. In terms of buying property, are we buying property for the roadway? Or are we buying the green space?
So what's in there right now, so we need to go in a closed session to discuss
I'm
it
sorry.
further,
I'm
what the
sorry. My
recommendation would be.
apologies. Okay.
So
Okay.
there's larger discussion that has to happen with council. It did come through the committee. We would have brought it back in
That's right.
December,
No,
I believe.
I understand
So
that.
it's got to go through a closed session before I can disclose any further information.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay, but do we have to buy additional land for the roadway?
Yes.
Yes, where the
Yes.
road is going, we need to purchase that land. Yes,
He told us that at the meeting.
yes.
So
Public
so
works.
so it's 1.8 plus construction of the road plus land acquisition.
Correct, yes.
So we could be up around $2 million before it's all said and done.
We do not anticipate, we have numbers from an appraiser and all that stuff, which was discussed in the closed meeting. So again, I can't disclose that information just now, but it won't, what we need is in the budget.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Bernard. Okay, we can move on. Okay, we have roads, street rehabilitation, intersection upgrades.
Thank you, Your Worship. So first one is our street resurfacing program. So we did have this higher originally. Again, we're trying to reduce our budget ask, so we did reduce it to match with what we had available under our CCBF funding, which is 2.75. We originally did a kind of an analysis that we talked about at the committee level, what it would cost if we were trying to resurface every street in the city once every 25 years, which is kind of an industry standard. And that's around the $4.8 million range. So we had originally 4.8 in the budget, but we did reduce it just to match the CCBF funding for this year to try to spread out our expenditures. The next line item, street engineering. This is where we pay for our surveying and consulting services for future and current designs. We also have earmarked in this the municipal design guidelines as well for this year, which is about a $300,000 purchase, and the chargeback study that was just recently approved at council for about $100,000 as well. The street rehabilitation Eastern Gateway Phase 1, again, that's already been awarded and underway. It started last year. We did reduce University Avenue this year. The reason why, we're having some challenges with Maritime Electric and Bell Alliant getting a final design for their underground services. So I did not have any confidence level that we were going to get much done this year, so we said we would push for another year on that one. Seaview Boulevard construction, that has been awarded, and that is fully funded by CCBF. Spencer Drive extension. Again, this is one we have no commitments as of yet in terms of contractually, so we could push it for another year. I believe Richard does have some funding in water and sewer budget for some of the underground water and sewer lines for some of that construction work. But this, again, trying to reduce the budget as much as we could. We said it could delay another year if we had to. Water Street. So this is a project, again, we would like to get this done this year, but we did pull it back just because we're trying to reduce our budget. We do have a collapsing storm water line. If anyone's familiar with the armories down at the end of Water Street, over by the Irish Monument there, the storm line has eroded. We have a failure in the line. There was a hole that opened up in the parking lot in the armories. So we at least have to fix that up this year, if anything. But the original plan was to, and we are designing it, it's being completed now, to redo Water Street from Queen Street all the way to the end, to the armories. But we did reduce it if we had to, push it to a future year. Eastern Gateway Phase 2, that project has been awarded. And the last one is Capitol Drive, North River Road. We put this in the budget for this year. We were going to do a little bit of work, or would like to do a little bit of work at the Capitol Drive, North River Road intersection, just to improve that south leg. Because we know as we're going to start doing some work on University Avenue, there's going to be even more traffic on North River Road. But again, if we removed it just to keep that budget as down as much as we could.
Okay, Councillor Beck.
Thank you, Scott. I just have a quick question. Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Eastern Gateway, Phase 2 is to be done by August 16th, correct? As part of the proposal that was put forth?
So I believe Phase 1 is June 30th. That's the number that comes out in my head, but I'll double check that. But Phase 2 is August 16th. That's correct.
Okay, and does one have to be done before the other starts, or can they be done concurrently?
They're going to be done concurrently. You're going to see work in both phases at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Twill.
Scott, as you know, you talked about University Avenue, which is going to be postponed because of the lack of compliance from, the private utilities. And I understand that. And again, I think we do need a bylaw to deal with some of their amenities and infrastructures that is on the city's right-of-way. I think it's long overdue, no different than the procurement bylaw, because we're always in a handicapped position where we can't be proactive, and if we try to be proactive, we're not getting that cooperation. So that's something we got to start dealing with these issues in a very formal way to send an unequivocal message to the members of the private sector. You're on the city's right of way. Number one, there should be a cost. There should be a cost. You utilize, you're making profits. Shareholders are making profits.
Yeah. Is the question?
The question is,
Yeah, thank you.
as you know, I've been advocating for a plan for Mount Edward Road. Mount Edward Road is an extremely busy road, heavy industrial usage. We have the west side, where it's totally unsafe for the pedestrian traffic. It's very difficult for children that are trying to commute to Sherwood School. I've been bringing this up over the last number of years, trying to commute to Sherwood School, and they cannot get across Mount Edward Road in a safe, consistent, predictable manner because there's no sidewalks, there's no active transportation pathway. We need a plan for Mount Edward Road, and likewise, the same thing for Allen Street.
Okay.
An extremely busy street, east-west connector from the old city to the Civic Center, the CDP, Morel,
Yeah.
Stratford.
Councillor Twill, that can go back to committee,
Yeah, I know,
Look at our
Mr. Mayor,
timeframe.
but
Okay.
but the budget process is all about adding and deleting,
Yeah, well,
right?
I don't think-
So, you can't have it both ways. If that's why we're here, then we need to have those deliberations and those discussions.
Well, we'll be here till 9 o'clock, 10
Well,
o'clock.
you know what? Bring it on.
Your Worship,
Bring it on.
just in one thing to Councillor Tweel's comment, I do apologize. So under street engineering, yes, we had anticipate doing a master plan for Mount Edward Road as well. So
Okay.
I did forget that. I do apologize. And yes, that is being looked
Councillor
at this
Bernard.
year.
Councillor Bernard.
I'm just wondering, Scott, I'm going back to the 2.7 million that matches the CCBF funding. So we've been rating the streets for quite a few years now. I think, memory serves me right, the higher the number, the worse shape the street's in. lower
The
number.
opposite. The lower the number, the worse it is. That's correct.
So I'm wondering, So last year, we spent 3.5 million on asphalt. This year, we're talking 2.7. So those are the streets getting in better shape? For example, as the numbers get a little bit higher when you do the ratings, are we getting ahead?
Your worship, through the Councillor Bernard, I'd have to have a closer look on that, how we are making out. Yes, I know
Like if the
we're
worst
seeing
used to
some
be
big
1 or
improvements
2,
for
and
sure.
Now the worst is 3 and 4.
Yeah, so we're definitely usually in the threes, but it really depends on the year, how badly we had a winter, things like that. Again, as I mentioned previously, what we did, and it was presented at the committee level, we talked about kind of when we're talking about 5-year plans and such, expenditures for some of these major line items. We had suggested a 4.5 million to 4.8, and where that number came from, that was essentially resurfacing every street once every 25 years. Which is kind of an industry standard that you try to achieve. Now, you do resurface streets under other projects, like Seaview Boulevard is going to be resurfaced under that project. So we want to aim somewhere around 4.5 million a year if we want to try to achieve that one every 25-year target. And we can reach that with proper maintenance as well, and our crews do a great job with that. So it is achievable for us, but it's just, it'd be great. We should try to spend a little more if we can. But it is challenging. It's trying to balance that expenditures and wants versus needs, I guess.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on Councillor Bernard's comment, because I thought, last year we did commit, we added an extra $1 million to be able to kind of get on top of that infrastructure so that we weren't coming back after a big gap and seeing such roads in disarray. We know when our infrastructure is good that people are happy, right? That's the kind of the base of that. So again, to decrease that again really is a step backwards, in my opinion, from what we kind of committed to last year when we put $1 million extra into the budget for these roads. So if I was looking at something like a $3 million Spencer Drive extension, where we still have houses that haven't sold and been moved, and we still have things that are going to take time, I would prioritize to commit to continuing with the street resurfacing and making sure that our asphalt is up to par in our city. That would be what I would like to see, but that's just my thought.
Okay, so again, I'm just writing these down. Hopefully, Dan, you're putting them down. What's park, what's green, what's yellow, and what's red. Anyways, so are you asking for an additional $1 million?
I'm just saying that whatever we projected last year, when we knew and we kind of committed at that time that we were going to try and do better and be on top of things, so we weren't letting our roads get in such bad shape, that we continue on that pathway and see, how we do over the next couple of years. So I think Scott just said it was like a 4.5 million projection. So you're looking at about another $1 million and $1.2 million in order to maintain what you think we need to do. Is that correct?
It'd be more than that. It'd be
we have 2.75, and you said, you said about 4 million.
around 4.5 million is what we should aim to.
So I think we need to look at myself in that range, because as we know, again, we came back looking for more money halfway through anyway. So again, where's our priorities as far as the bigger picture goes? And if that's a commitment, I would like to see that.
Councillor Drawn, just wait until Councillor Matart goes.
Thank you.
Councillor Matart.
Thank you. To the manager, just a clarification, on February 27th, we approved 8.3 for the Eastern Gateway Phase 2 project to Birch Hill Construction. 9.3, is that the tax component of that?
Correct. We had to budget the 10% taxes.
Right, thank you.
Hey, Councillor Drawn.
On 64, the street resurfacing, it says 2.75 million, and then partner funding's 2.75 million. What's going on there? Like, are we not getting the partner funding with that?
Chief Engineer.
Your worship, through to the councillor. So all that is the former gas tax, but it's Canadian Communities Building Fund, I believe.
Canadian Community Building Fund.
Yeah. And it's an allocation that's given to the city each year, typically split between, there's some funding that goes to water and sewer. The odd time, Parks and Rec gets a little bit of funding from it, and then the rest usually trickles to Public Works. And so that is funding that we're allocating to this project of 2.75. million.
Councillor Toronto, are you looking at what is our contribution? Is that what you're asking?
Well, it just says budget request, 2.75, and then partner funding. So I was wondering, are we not putting anything in, or is it just coming from partner funding? I thought
Correct.
it was a match myself, so that's
that-
why when we're saying we have to put more in, I was like, wow, that's going to be great, but, I mean.
No,
if we're
it's not
only
a
putting in
matching program.
2.5
Yeah. So
What's that?
his question, just to clarify, Councillor Toronto, you're asking the question, we're just taking the money from the CCBF and using that for resurfacing, correct? Is that your question?
Well, yeah, like
Yeah.
I thought we were going 5.5 million.
So,
But we're
no.
only really going 2.75.
No, we're only going with what CCBF has given us.
Okay, so there's none coming from our capital budget here.
So Councillor McCabe is asking to add something to it.
Oh, definitely, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Oh, I had you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So last year, back to the street resurfacing, we budgeted 3.5 million, and we came back and got more. I think through a resolution, we asked for more.
We added $1 million.
Yeah, we added 1 million, and so this year, we're only going to budget 2.75. I mean, with prices going, I mean, how can that math doesn't work for me. I don't know. I tend to agree with the chair of the committee. I can't imagine that we're going to be able to improve all of the streets that we need to improve for 2.75. So
Okay.
that would be a priority for me to see that number increase.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Bernard.
I'm just wondering, Scott or Dan can answer this. The Canadian Community Building Fund, the old gas tax fund, so we used to be, I know we were around 3.3 million. I think it was bumping up to 3.5. What is it now? How much do we get to the city of Charlottetown from that fund?
Betty, did we
More than
not
2.7.
sign something for 5 years? And they laid out those 5 years? I think it's 3.2, 3.3, it's something, goes back.
Your worship, I believe it's about 3.6,
It's
is
up
what, roughly there.
Per year,
anticipated.
over the next 5 years?
So the next 5 years, I don't believe we have a funding agreement. I think that's got to be coming, that's something that needs to be worked on over the next little bit. So that hasn't, we don't know that future contribution yet.
So can you put it all towards asphalt? 3.6?
No, thank you.
No, it's not all going to, 2.7 is going to asphalt, and then money's going to water and wastewater, if you look at
There's a
the,
project in wastewater that it qualifies for?
yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, the criteria is stormwater management, street construction, definitely water and wastewater, because if you look at water and wastewater, there's a lot of CCPF funding there.
And I think you'll see or later on in Parks and Rec, the shoreline protection, because it's stormwater related.
Is CCPF?
Yeah.
CCBF?
Yeah, that's correct.
So could we find out what's left in that pool? Because I don't think we spent it every year. One year we got it doubled during the pandemic. It went from
Yeah.
3.2,
That's
3.4
right.
to
We always said double.
6.8. There should be, there's a count for that, I think, is there not? We're looking. Okay,
Betty would know that right now, would Betty? Do you know how much left in that account?
no.
We've always said between 4.5 and 6 million.
Scott, what's the matter? Yeah, we were looking at it the other day, and we hadn't quite allocated all of it, but Scott and Richard were looking at allocating the rest. I think we'd allocated all but 3 million, but that was assuming we would get the same in the new year, the 24, 25 year as we have in the past.
So,
Right.
so you're saying, so is there still the 3 million that never got used from last year? On top of this top of the 3.6 we're getting this year?
Yeah. Can,
I think you guys are updating a little bit, so.
Yeah.
can we get a calculation of that, please?
We'll have to just review it all and then we can.
Well, that'll make a
work
big
between-
difference.
Yeah. Councillor Twill? Is it about,
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, we talk about stormwater management. As you know, Scott, Public Works set aside some dollars last year to do some engineering work down at Queen Street. That was several months ago. Can you give me a status report as to where we're at with the engineering exploratory work, for the lack of a better description, and what the plan of action is moving forward. I know the residents are very, very interested in dealing with this overwhelming storm. Every time we have a rain event, where there's a tremendous amount of anxiety, fear, they're scared. So that's my first question.
Yeah, Councillor Twill, that's under stormwater management. We're still at street rehabilitation and inspection upgrades.
Pardon me?
We're still at street, line 73. We haven't got into sidewalk and curb. We'll have to do those first.
Right, well,
Yeah, okay,
you referenced stormwater.
Yeah, no,
so-
because that's under CCBF.
Okay,
thank
okay.
you.
So, okay, well, anyway, he has that question. We get to it, he can answer it.
Yeah, okay. No, is it something about street rehabilitation that you're asking?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, let's look at street rehabilitation. I mean, the streets in this city are horrendous. The streets are in terrible shape. Whether it's main entranceways or some of these neighborhood streets. Scott, as you know, I mean, I've outlined Bayfield Street, for example. To my mind, it's totally dysfunctional. There's more holes there than there is in Swiss cheese.
So you'll agree to adding more money to what is recommended?
$1 million is not going to cut
Okay,
it.
well, we'll have to wait and see as we go through the budget.
Talk specific projects.
That's what we're doing here. We're not.
Like, can we look at the bigger
We're looking at
picture
the
here now?
the big picture. Let's get back online here. Let's go to sidewalk and curb materials. And that's sidewalks and multipurpose trails.
Yes, so the first line item you see there is 425,000. That's for materials. That's for our city staff. So as I mentioned, I did not cut anything that impacted our operations, summer operations, or that we had commitment. So the bottom line item is sidewalk new construction. So we did earmark 3.9 in this, but again, because we haven't made any commitments on that first or the next year of that 5-year plan, so we did not put that in there, again, just to keep the budget in check for this year. But we can have discussion on that, on what we'd like to do there.
Councilor Bernard.
Thank you. Just on that, Scott, sidewalk new construction. There's nothing in the budget, so am I understanding you to say that there's been no new sidewalk construction right now?
No.
Even though we've had that 5-year plan, I don't think it's completed.
Your worship, through the chair, so again, we were asked to see how we could reduce that budget without impacting the city operation, creating liability or our day-to-day operations. And this was a line item that, yes, we do have the 5-year plan. I think it's at 3.9 million for this year, and that's roughly where we try to hit right around the 3 to 4 million, or 3.9 to 4 million mark. Again, we just had to, we removed it as a result just to get our capital budget down to a level that was asked for by the finance committee.
Okay. Councilor.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you want to add?
obviously we have a 5-year plan, we put that out for a reason, I think you want to continue with it. I guess, can I ask a question
Yeah.
on the financing?
Are you looking at the financing of streets, sidewalks, and so forth? Is that what you're looking at? Or just the total finance?
Total.
Yeah, can we leave that? I'm with you on that, too.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Twill, now, are we talking about specific sidewalks, or are we talking about the big picture? This is what they want to know, and I think, what did you say, Councilor Bernard? Was it 3.2 million for streets, or 3.9 million for street, or for sidewalks this year? That's our 5-year plan. So, did you want to add something to that discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to add
Yeah.
well, one issue that keeps coming up. I mean, we're going to public consultation here, in about a week's time. We're going to public consultation. Residents have already sent emails regarding a particular project on Allen Street because it's not safe. A number of emails have come in. So if we're going to consult with the public,
Yeah.
and they made it quite clear, they don't feel safe on the north side of Allen Street between Mount Everett Road, more specifically from Mr. Plummer to St. Peter's Road. I'd like that red flagged and have for consideration.
Yep.
I think it's very important. And, a lot of seniors are living in that particular area. And, they've made it quite clear.
Okay, so that'll go back to the committee too. Okay, let's go to stormwater management.
Good, so there, can I get my question answered?
And just let them go through the budget first.
I'll go right through the budget and I'll answer your question right
Stop
away
there,
as well.
ditch infilling.
So the 275,000, it's pipe and catch basin material. That's again for our staff and their operations. The small infill and repairs, that is the funds that we hire a backhoe and truck to go with our pipe crew, and that's where those funds come from. And then the stormwater management line item right here, we have received funding through the Green Initiative through FCM to do a much larger stormwater modeling practice. We did this already a few years ago, a couple years ago now, I guess, with Eastern Gateway. We had to model the area to understand how much water flowed in that area before we could size the pipe. This will capture a greater area of the downtown. I think it captures pretty much most of the downtown area and stormwater, and models that. And then at the end of the day, we will have a stormwater model that we can build on in other areas and also better understand our stormwater current needs and future demands that we're going to have to plan for. In regards to Councillor Tweel's question.
Yes.
So yes, Queen Street's underway. We're waiting to hear back on some, they're doing investigative work. They're looking at all the inflows and outflows. So they're doing all that. Once they're done that, they'll come back and present some options to us on what we can do. We expect those options sometime early summer probably when we'll hear back from them. And then we can look at, what we think would be the right fit. And then plan for that accordingly in future
Okay,
capital
fleet
budget.
management. Did you have another street? Yeah, do you have another street?
On that question, so Scott, I think when we went out to engage with the firm, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, was it about $80,000?
Yeah, I can't recall.
Okay, so, and they will come back with not just one option, 2 and 3 options.
It depends on what they find is the issue, and there may be only one actual solution. Again, it depends on their investigation and what the options they'll come back with. I expect there will be at least a couple, but again, they're doing an investigation right now, trying to understand what is causing it, and how we can better manage it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Total fleet management, 2 million to 2.2 million.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have 2 accounts under here. There's small fleet and large fleet. We will break out the small fleet as we look after Parks and Rec and Police. So Parks and Rec is around 380,000. Police is around 300,000, and the remaining balance is for our Public Works fleet. And then our large fleet, we did reduce this one a little bit. We had anticipated a plow truck. Now, we know delivery times are likely to exceed 12 months between now and between the time we order it. So we likely won't receive it in this fiscal. So the plan would be for us to order it and then pay for it next fiscal. The 460 is just to augment and replace aging sidewalks machines in that one.
Councilor Picard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Scott, just remind me here again, did you say that the 1.75 for small fleet includes also police and parks and recreation small fleet?
Your Worship, through the councillor, yes, that's correct. So 300,000 goes to police. They replace their vehicles, their patrol vehicles every 2 years just because of the use.
Okay.
They're constantly running, and they get a lot of wear and tear, and they need to have reliable vehicles. The Parks and Rec fleet and Public Works fleet, 5 years is the turnover time. That's kind of a point where you still have value in the truck, where we can get some value out of it from auction, and help us also reduce the maintenance costs on those vehicles. That's the challenge. Once you start getting any older than that, you start seeing major engine repairs, major transmission repairs, some significant costs associated with maintaining a fleet that old. And so that's why we try to strive for that 5-year replacement.
So on an just average $80,000 a vehicle, that's about 21 vehicles. Do you propose 21 vehicles being added to the fleet?
It's not added, it's replacement.
Replacement?
So it's
Sorry,
fleet
replacing, yeah.
vehicles are coming out of the fleet, and and will be sold at auction, and then replaced with new. Now, some of those costs are also, like you look at, we'll talk about our paint truck, so our crews that go around painting lines. That is a chassis that we order, and then we buy a specialty box to go on the back of it. So yes, the track may cost $80,000, but then we have to buy the
Okay.
box, which is 20,000.
So you don't feel there's much room to move there?
So I did move that some. Looking at the 5-year range, when you look at the purchases year over year for the next 5 years, it kind of had some peaks and then dipped down, and the goal was to try to smooth that line out, and so that's what we tried to here. So this is smoothing the line out. So it was actually over 2 million at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Council McCabe.
Yeah, so that 2.215 is just for public works vehicles?
No.
No.
Please.
As I
Okay.
mentioned,
So that's what
gonna
I'm,
be broken
okay,
down.
so
Yeah.
this is where I'm struggling, because it looks like it's coming under the
I
public
thought the
works
same thing.
budget. So we're asking for 2.25 under that, but some of it's police, some of it's parks.
Correct.
And I appreciate that we take care of the fleet management under the parks and public works, but again, it's kind of a smoke and mirror, line item when we're looking at trying to, to say we can't do sidewalks this year is just not, that's not going to fly.
Yeah, I think
We've
this is-
promised people who've been waiting for a long time. So to see a zero there and to see this line item budget that looks really large, but, so what's the public works component on that we should be looking at? Is how I'd like to see that broken down.
It's just over 1 million, but yes, we'll break it out into the 3
Yeah.
lines so everyone can see.
And going back to what Councillor Matart said, what do we actually need for those this year? What can we squeeze another year out of? So I'd
Yeah.
like to see that
Yeah.
broken down.
That's why the chief engineer, I suggested to the chief engineer that the SUV Escalade for the office of the mayor would be not in this budget. Why, are you driving by my house for a reason? Yeah, okay, stay away from there. Looks good. Okay, Deputy?
I just to sum up for my questions. So last year, capital budget for Public Works was just shy of 42 million. And then the first revision we saw of the capital budget for this year for Public Works was 43 million. Now with this shaved and reduced items from it, we've moved down to a Public Works budget of 29 million?
No. 20, about 21. Just.
Well, no, I'm comparing apples to apples. Last year's budget included the funding in it, so I'm going by.
Oh, yes.
With the funding added
So it's
to
about
it.
30 million with the
Yeah,
funding.
so I'm going, last year's budget in our budget book, Public Works was almost 42 million with the partner
With the partner funding.
This year, it was going to be 43 with the partner funding. Now it's 28 with the partner funding. I just trying to get my head around how we can do city business in Public Works for such a substantially reduced amount of capital money. That's just, yeah.
Mr.
Anywho.
Dan Jenkins probably has an answer.
I just wanted to make a comment through the chair, Councillor Yankoff. I agree with you, the budget was much more substantial last year, but I think a relevant number to consider is that the forecast for the current year for all the public works budget is a little less than 14 million. So even though we budgeted much more than that, we weren't able to spend that. So it's trying to reduce the gap between what we'd like to do and what we can actually pull off.
Councilor Bernard.
Yeah, I'm going to have the same conversation because numbers I got, it's after partner funding.
Which is 21.
It's $34 million we had last year. This year, we're talking about 20 million for city dollars for public works, so $14 million change, as Dan just said. I'm wondering why the last few years we've had capital budgets. We've been able to set how much we could spend in capital, which was around $60 million. And that was affordable. And all of a sudden this year now, it's not affordable. And I'm wondering what is making the difference to us to have to drop our services by so much when the last number of years we've had surpluses. We've had surplus budgets for the last 4 years. Now, I know this year, for whatever reason, I don't know yet, that we were running a deficit, and we ended up using 2 million of our savings, and then the 5.7 they found through the budget. But yet we're asking for like $1 million in new hiring. So I'm trying to get my head around, we want all this new hiring done, but we have no money. We got to cut capital projects back. We're not going to do sidewalks. We're not going to do street repaving, or very little of it. But the ask in the new initiatives is over $1 million. Makes no sense to me. And I can't get that my head around. So we've dropped this budget way, way down, which is Public Works is really the heartbeat of the city. So, maybe somebody can explain that to me, because I'm going through numbers. I can't see it. And I go through the last number of years, and yeah, the budgets were around 60, 65 million. We've been traditionally spending 40, 35, 40. Now, going the last 2 years, we haven't met budget, probably because of COVID. And there's still some of that now with the supply chain issue. We're into March. We know if we don't get our capital budget out in February, you're in for higher prices. It's just, we know that. That's why we try and get it done in January, February to get the tendering going. So I'm at a loss for where all this money went.
Mr. Jenkins?
Tracy, could I get you to just go to the HDMI cable there? Points well taken through the chair to Councillor Bernard. Certainly, we had a much larger capital budget. Last year, we spent about 40 million, which is a lot closer to the budget we're bringing forward, or we're discussing today. We're at about 55. Last year, we spent 41. So we're trying to bring those numbers a little closer together and be better at projecting what we're actually going to be able to accomplish. Even though we had a much larger budget, just budgeting for it didn't get the work done. So because we didn't get the work done, we didn't have the costs that go along with that, the interest costs and the depreciation. So
Right.
our actual numbers didn't go where we thought they would. So.
But Dan, my point is those numbers, the 64 for 22-23 and the 65 for 23-24, for example, those were numbers that were given to us from finance that we could afford in capital expenditures in our operational. And I know we only spent 40, but most years you're not going to spend what you budget for in capital, because it's got to go to design, it's got to go to drawings. A lot of times it takes a couple of years to get that project done. Look at the elevator for Hillsborough, for example. We're in our third year. I think most people with sidewalks will know it takes a couple of years. So I don't know. I mean, to get down to $20 million, it's pretty low. And I guess I'd like to know what the impact that's going to have on the budget, because I know we've had surpluses.
Yeah. So that's why we parked some of the issues that were brought up. Councillor Twill, did you want to add to the history?
I'd like to try to reinforce some of the things that Councillor Bernard brought up. I think it boils down to philosophy on what you want in your budget. What's a priority for senior management versus what's a priority for council, and what's more importantly, what's a priority for the constituency. So it comes to Public Works, some of these other departments. These are big ticket items. They're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting. And you have to be consistent and do things incrementally and make that investment in your infrastructure. And if you let it get away on you and you're not keeping up, then we're going to be further and further behind. And then what you're going to experience is for example, no money for sidewalks, in terms of where we need sidewalks and in terms of repairs. What you're going to find out is you're going to be faced with lawsuits. Okay, you're going to be faced with lawsuits. It's not the first time it's happened, and it's going to happen more and more and more. So, I'll reiterate what I talked about. Street resurfacing. The streets are in horrendous shape, and adding another $1 million, Mr. Mayor, it's not going to cut the mustard. There's more vehicle traffic on the streets of Charlottetown now than there ever was. Okay, more now than there ever was. I don't know where all this traffic's coming from. Pardon me? Increased population comes
that's
back to
usually what
what I
happens.
said.
People
So
get
if we're going
cars.
to increase the population, and this is the wishes of the feds and the provincial government,
Yeah.
then they have to come to the table.
Yeah.
Okay? I've said it before and I'll say it again.
Okay.
If you're going to cut the ribbons, then you have to start cutting the checks.
Okay.
You can't, this trickle-down way of trickle-down economics and putting all the onus and emphasis on the municipality, it's too much strain. It's much too much strain, and here we are trying to figure out why we're decreasing the amount of financial commitment to the infrastructure. Mr. Mayor, this is very troublesome. It really is.
It is, and that's
very,
why we
very
look-
troublesome.
Every year, the capital budget goes
Oh, I
through
know,
this.
but you know what?
Every year, this
we
is.
never faced this kind of a dilemma.
Yeah, well, this is a dilemma we have to find a solution to. And Councillor McCabe, you were the chair of this lovely Department of Public Works.
I
How's that?
am the chair, but
Yeah.
we're all in this together. My question, kind of piggybacking a little bit with Councillor Tweel, is I know that we had looked at, are there ways that we were going to be able to access some more funding from our partners at the province and whatever? Have we gotten anywhere with any of that discussion, or is that going to be something that we'll be able to count on as we're going into this budget time?
No. Councillor? Sorry, Councillor Mackler, do you want to defer to Mr. Jenkins?
Again, I'd just like to reiterate and impress upon council, we are in a transition year. I know this budget and how it's come together, it's been different than other years, and that's not the least of which what Danny has inherited. We have this funding gap, this graph, in front of us. I'm certainly supportive of where Danny and his team are trying to get us with the budgeting process this year. And if that means we have to look at this budget this year as kind of a one-off, we've asked them, the Finance Committee has asked them to put together what we have before us with the lens of not putting any pressure on the tax rate for this year. And as for the bigger piece for the funding and the funding formula, that has to get settled. There'll be work done on that this year, sooner rather than later, I hope, in terms of a solution, and what that'll end up being in terms of more of the tax pie. Obviously can't say with any certainty, but would like to think that there's going to be a change there, and that will certainly reflect a different budgeting process and the sort of things that we'll be able to consider for capital and operating purposes going forward. So, again, I think the task here is to get this over the line for this year, and it may mean making some concessions that we don't like to make, but again, if the council is in support of the staff trying to get it where there's no pressure on the tax rate, then we have to take their lead and their direction, and that's what they're there to do, and that's what the focus is right now, unless it gets changed here between now and the end of this process. But we're running out of time. We got to get through this tonight. And we got to make some hard choices here in the short term. Thank you,
Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you, through
And
your
Councillor
worship, to
McCabe.
Councillor McCabe. I did want to let you know that discussions are continuing with our funding partners, and we're actively working that file. But I will say that this process, in terms of understanding the costs of delivering, providing infrastructure and delivering these services for growing population, that's not just a Charlottetown population, but an island-wide population. It impacts our roads, our stormwater management, our emergency management, our recreation facilities across the board. So this is a really helpful process in terms of understanding those costs so that we can go to our funding partners and make a case for additional support from them.
Councilor McCabe, do you want to just sum it up?
I do, and I just want to say thank you both for those explanations. And
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing too is because it's a working document, it can be workable as
Yeah.
we find out and move and progress in those areas. So to say we approve now doesn't mean we can't look at other projects once we keep begging for money.
Okay. Okay, can we move on to Parks and Recreation? Do you, final comment there, Councilor Bernard? Well, this, Public Works is one of the hardest budgets to get through. Go ahead there. Okay, you want to?
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what?
leave your question. Okay, let's go to Parks and
Never mind.
Recreation. Can we change the players? Mr. Frank, look, guys, it's 6 o'clock. I don't think we're going to finish it, so come Wednesday, we have to finish off what we didn't finish tonight because 6:30 is only 33 minutes away.
But you know what, Your Worship?
Does he have access to this?
The conversations with the province right now is because our 5-year funding agreement expired, so it's up in negotiations for a new funding agreement. We don't know what that's going to be. For me, I'm trying to figure out, we hear about the population increasing, but we also have all the assessments going up. We also all the new bills. So I'd like to see what our revenue is saying compared to last year and the year before. Because if we've got to cut back, then so be it. But I mean, I'm kind of lost of the amount of cuts that we're saying we have to do when we've been able to keep up for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So we've had increases. We've had a population increase from 2,000 to 29,000 to today at 39,000. We've never had to do a tax increase.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had the funding there. So now that the population is ramping up quicker, but so is our assessments. So I'd like to see the revenue coming into the city
If you want.
and see where we are before we start making final decisions, I guess.
That's why on Wednesday, I believe we'll be dealing with the operational and the capital.
Okay.
Okay, Parks Recreation? Well, let's just finish up. Look, I was hoping to get this done in the 2.5 hours, but everything was bogged down with. Okay, Frank, can you start, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We'll try to go as quickly as possible and trying to use technology here, so just bear with me. I need glasses to see the screen, but I don't need it to see you folks, so. All right, so the first projects there are under the arena section. So you'll see a bulk of that cost is associated with the Simmons replacement project. We've committed to that project. This will see the project finish up this year and be open in October. So you'll see there is the capital commitment there of $12,817,137. So that's the net commitment, and you can see the actual budget that's required for that project. The Cody Banks one, those are just the normal repairs you have to do with that facility. And I'm going to try to just focus on the larger projects as well, similar to Scott did. So the next ones are associated to park development and playgrounds. The first category is the playground equipment and development. And I do have an actual overview for that project. And I don't know if it was sent out to people, Betty. Did it happen to get sent out to individuals, these sheets?
No, if you want to use my screen, I've got it right here. That'd be helpful.
Yeah. I'll look up here, right there. So there is, so you want to share it with them?
Whichever you prefer, or we also have paper copies if I come out.
Do we have paper copies?
Janice gave you paper copies?
Yeah, so what I'll do, so we do want to share, so you'll have to switch screens. Do I have it, do you have it in yours, in here?
Actually, you pass it over to me and I'll, sure.
So just be one moment there. All right, so you'll see the overview sheet there for the playground equipment and park development. So this indicates the amount of money that was approved last year. As you're aware, there was a larger capital budget last year because of the delays in playground equipment coming in, supply chain issues, and then having issues with actually getting the work done. So we're asking for another 90,000 this year, carrying over the remaining of that was not spent from 2023, 2024, for a grand total of 488,903. These funds will be used to remove and install the new equipment that we received that's out in City Works building right now from 2021, 2022, 2023. This includes swings at the 5 parks listed there: Skyview, Westcombe, Llewellyn, Marysfield, Gamwell. Medium structures to be installed at Bridle Path Park and Evergreen Park, and independent structure at West Rowley Community Centre Park and Westcombe Park. We've already committed 90,000 in PO, and like I said, due to supply chain delay, staff shortage, contractors availability, this work was unable to complete it in 2023, but the staff expect to complete all of it this year, and we've already been laying out a plan how we're going to approach that. In addition to these, the install a playground, we do other work as well. It's including grading and landscaping of 2 new park areas, one out in Montgomery Heights area, and the other is a Meadow Park. Also completing park concept plans for 3 new parks: Montgomery Heights, Towers Road, and Horseshoe Hill. And then we would look at ordering and purchasing 2 medium play structures for Montgomery Heights and Stockman, and ordering 1 new swing for Montgomery Heights Park. Those would just be purchased this year and would be installed in the future. So this is going to enable us to catch up because we've fallen behind, and then hopefully in future years our capital budget would be, for this would be in the range of 200 to 250,000. Oh, so it wasn't that one? Okay, sorry. I thought Dan was showing that one, but anyway, so I just. Yeah, so I will provide the playground equipment and park development that will be sent out. Sorry, I thought it's the one that was on the screen.
Frank, just to interrupt, is that part of our documentation? What, I was looking for it?
No, it was, I thought it was being displayed by Dan here, but apparently it was not, Your Worship, so sorry about that, but.
Yes, sorry, Your Worship. We just had, on this spreadsheet, we just had the Simmons summary project page. Frank did do some work and put some other project pages together, but unfortunately they didn't make it to the spreadsheet here, so apologies to council. We will get those, and we'll update the package for you, so
You'll be updating the XLs?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, we'll send you a revised version of that with some linked tabs to those project sheets, so you'll be able to see a little more detail. Yep.
Great. Councillor Twilley, did you want to just ask a comment? Go ahead.
Wanted to look at the open space master plan. There's no dollars allotted to this particular discipline, and my question is why?
Are we at, wait, no, just Frank's putting it up now. Yeah, Frank's putting it up. Does it come up on our screen too? Okay, same one.
Do you want to go back or? Say, sorry, Councillor Tweel, I was plugging in my laptop there, so I didn't actually hear what you had said. If you want to
I
repeat your
wanted to get
question.
a question on open space master plan. Come up with plans and designs, different possibilities, whether it be parks, could be playing fields, whatever the case may be. I don't see any money allotted this year, so we could develop plans, whether it be for this year or future years. The question is, why is there no money allotted under that line item?
So the actual open space parks master plan, that's for the overall department. in the playground equipment and development, there is money allocated in there for the park concept plans. So you'll see in this write-up that Dan has on your screen right now, we did get it updated there. So it does indicate that there are three park concept plans that we're looking at doing this year.
Aside for other possibilities, sure, as we progress into the year, there's going to be other possibilities, other options to look at. And I would suggest putting maybe 40,000 as a red flag, to put $40,000 in for an open space master plan, because again, the city's growing. There's there's tremendous pressure on having parks and other amenities throughout the city of Charlottetown. And I'm trying to be proactive, so I would recommend at least 40,000 to dedicate it to open space master plan.
Okay.
Like to red flag that.
Yeah, we'll put that there.
Yeah, so your worship through to Councillor Tweel. So at the end of the day, we're waiting for the official plan to be done too, so that's nothing as well. We don't want to spend money on a Parks Master Plan until we have an up-to-date official plan. And 40,000 won't actually, once you start doing a master plan, you have to do the whole thing. You can't just start it, part of it, and do part of it. So we indicated that it would cost around 100 grand to do the whole master plan, but having said that, we have a lot of other projects here that are valuable projects that we feel need to be done. This one can be pushed off the Parks Open Space Plan till next year.
Okay. And Frank, did we finish all those? Did you go through that total park development and playgrounds? Okay. Councillor Bernard.
Thank you. Frank, I'm just wondering, I know we have talked about it in the past, and this may be the line item. But at one point, we were talking about doing a study or a master plan on all the city's infrastructure for sport, what shape they're in, what our needs are. For example, ball fields, soccer fields, rugby fields, all the infrastructure, and the new sports, whether it be pickleball or whether it be cricket, where we are, what shape we're in, and what would be the recommendation going forward? Is this the study that that would have happened in?
The Councillor Tweel, or sorry, Councillor Bernard. So the actual open space master plan, the Parks Master Plan, that high level would be included in that. Drilling down the details, we would do additional work on that once they identified, okay, what is needed, what's our current condition of our facilities. We have been doing that internally ourselves to try to get an idea where we're at.
That's okay.
But trying to figure out the overall master plan on how everything works together, we feel before we move forward with that, we need the official plan in place. So we have a good idea on where the city's going, the overall direction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Victoria Park. We go to the next group.
All right.
Just told we were done at park development playgrounds.
So the next one here, the Victoria Park Shoreline Protection, as Scott alluded to previously, this is one of the projects that is funded through the CCBF fund. So it is 100% covered through that fund. And as of right now, we will be, just looking at my sheets here. Yeah, I just need to be close enough to read it. Sorry, that's one of these things when you're rare readers, you don't need them for everything. So this project's been on the list for a couple of years, and we've been moving it forward. And what it actually requires is the corner, the shoreline protection is required from the corner of Brighton extending south to the medium. It's approximately 800 feet, which is currently protected by sandstone. It's one of the last sections still only protected by sandstone in the park, and it needs to be completely replaced with granite stone. The granite stone has broken down, and we had a high tide there back in 2020 that actually caused the boardwalk to be taken out some into the water and caused flooding next to the Jumpstart playground and in the wooded area there. His worship went out there and he couldn't walk out in the water. It was so deep.
It was over my head.
So we engaged at that time in 2020, we engaged the service of Coles Associates, and they actually did a design plan. Right now they're working and did a tender document at the time, and they gave us a good estimate of probable cost. In 2022, we made application to the CCBF fund to see if we get it funded. And in December of 2022, it was approved. We got word. We were unable to proceed in 2023, but this project will be proceeding in 2024. And we're just finalizing right now the actual tender document. It'll be going out in April and awarded in May. Construction to commence in the fall of 2024.
Councillor Beck?
Thanks for that, Frank. Great news. Anything we can do to protect our little jewel in the city, I'm fully supportive of. Just one question. That intersection of Brighton and Queen Elizabeth Drive tends to get, I know there's been historically a lot of flooding with properties around there that's since been remediated. I know a lot of work's been put in. There's still flooding, still gets problematic at times. Is part of this $1 million, $1,080,000 $1 million project? Is part of that going to be tied to fixing some of that too, or is this totally shoreline protection?
So, Your Worship, through to Councillor Beck. So right now, this is totally shoreline protection. This needs to be done before Public Works can actually start the upgrade to the roadway, the Victoria Park roadway, and other stormwater management around that location. This will help a lot if you can stop the water from coming in initially. But yeah, so that will be part of the stormwater management part once this portion is done, managing the actual, protecting the property.
Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Twill.
No, I just see where it is being funded for the whole total there, Frank, thank you for that. And because my question was going to be, the city doesn't own Victoria Park, but we look after it and it's federal waters and that, so I see where the funding is, so thank you for that. And I have some floaties home, Your Worship, for my granddaughter, if you want to go swimming.
Councillor Twill? No, you're on. Jeez, turned it off again. Okay, you're on.
Yeah.
Hot button.
Frank, on the shoreline redevelopment, as you indicated, this has been on the books now for the last 2 or 3 years. I thought it was going to be brought forward this fiscal year. It didn't come forward. Well, I guess my first question is, why weren't we able to accomplish this particular project, which is long overdue for this year? What was were there delays, or what were the challenges? Why the project didn't proceed this past year?
So, Your Worship, through to Councillor Twill. So, as I noted, we didn't receive word on the funding that it was being funded through CCBF until December 19, 2022. And once we did that, then we had to look at, the next steps, and it just was the timing. We just didn't have the capacity within the department. We've been working on it. Now we've got it moving forward, that we've got the design drawings done, the tender document, we're getting it updated and getting it sent out. This type of work could only be done probably in the fall. We don't want to doing it during the summer season. Can't do it in the spring because it's too soft and whatnot, so it's either a fall, winter project. So it's just the timing. We missed our opportunity last year because we didn't hear about the funding and then was able to get the documents out. So, yeah. But it is being done this year. I can assure you that it's one of my top priorities.
And Councillor Twill, if you drive east over the Hillsborough Bridge, they're bringing in granite stone for the boardwalk along the Hillsborough River in Stratford. So it's a lot of logistics involved. Okay. Another question about the shorefront? Okay.
Victoria Park.
Okay.
And some of the dollars that are set aside for enhancement improvements. One of the things we've been talking about here for the last number of years is the boulevard in Victoria Park from Brighton Road all the ways around to Terry Fox Drive. Major dollars are required, everything from new lighting, improving the grass medium. There's a lot of infrastructure dollars that are required to do, I think there's a master plan. Maybe Mr. Adams can attest to that, but that was one of the things that, we've been talking about for the last number of years. Now, I'm not sure if that's Parks and Recreation or if that's Public Works or a combination of both. So, what I want to know is, if it is Public Works, then like it's long overdue. We've got infrastructure there that it's depleted, and we've got to start making some inroads on the infrastructure along the boulevard.
Okay. Okay. Frank,
Yes, and
would
so,
you-
Your Worship, I'll just provide a light comment on that, Your Worship, through to Councillor Tweel. So there is, Public Works has done up a design in consultation with Parks and Recreation since the road runs through the park. That proposal will be brought to Public Works and Parks and Recreation to see, and then it'll become part of the city's future capital upgrades when the funds allow it to be done.
Working outside the silos. Okay, sports field development upgrades.
So just the last one within that there, I want to just mention it is $500,000, is the Victoria Park tennis courts.
Yeah.
That work needs to be done. Last year, we assessed it, and we done further assessment. We were trying to come up with other options that we wouldn't have to reconstruct the courts 4 to 8. There is major cracking that is occurring in the courts. We tried to do a patch job in 2018. It hasn't held up. And these cracks, and once I send you the drawings, or the picture, you'll see that there's a major cracks throughout the courts. And what's happening is, as long as they stay level, they're not as big an issue. It's once they start to lift and move, they become trip hazards. And so we are proposing that this project, right now, we've already underway doing some initial research. We're doing a geotech work to test out the soil. And this work would be awarded in April, go with the tender in April, awarded in May, with construction hopefully to start later this May, hopefully to get done within a month to 2 months, because those courts need to be overhauled right away.
Is that it, Frank, for the
Yes.
Vic Park? Okay. Councilor Bernard?
Just a question on the funding, Frank. Is that partner funding approved? Has that been confirmed?
That funding has not been approved yet. We're working on the application. It's a bit more, we made our initial application, they expressed interest, but now there's a more detailed application process. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it will meet the criteria, since the courts do need to be completely resurfaced.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Frank. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Where are you at?
I'm trying to find myself as well.
Okay.
So next we'll go on here. The next one, so you'll see sport field development and upgrades. We have one field in there that we're upgrading this year.
Oh.
And then we go on here underneath the sport facilities and buildings. The major one there is we're looking at trying one of our outdoor, multi-sport outdoor facilities, looking at trying to take one of them and actually upgrade them with an artificial ice system. This year, as you can see right now, the only artificial ice system we have going is down at Founders Hall. And we're hoping to keep that. We're going to try to keep it till March break. We're not sure yet. It's all weather related. If the chiller unit is going constantly, we might have to, to abandon. So we're looking at trying this. If we had this permanent infrastructure at one rink, see how it works for the winter months. It makes it easier. You just have to flip the switch, you flood it, and you get ice. And then you can keep it. What the artificial system does is allows us to keep the ice when we have the temperature goes up to +6, +8, and then it drops down. Right now, we have lost all of our other outdoor rinks since the end of February. So we're looking at trying this at one location, and you'll see there's other ones we're pushed out that if this works, we might look at other locations in the future. The other ones there are smaller projects, and I do want to mention them because they're both high public demand. It's the pickleball courts and the disc golf course. The pickleball courts, we are looking at reusing one of our existing tennis courts, and it's over at Hillsborough Park Community Center. It's a perfect location. We've been working with the group, and they're very interested in that location, and the surface is in great shape. and the other would be a disc golf course that we're identifying where we're going to go. Right now, we're looking at our own property, but also looking at other locations as well.
So Frank, just before we go on, I'm looking at my spreadsheet, multi-sport outdoor facilities, budget 700,000, 24-25, partner funding 150, and then in the last column, it had 0. Now you just
Yes, so
updated.
sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, that was one of those things that didn't get carried over. It's in the total, just so you know, the total does include that amount. It was something I noticed afterwards. There was a couple projects that the funds didn't get carried over, but they were actually in the grand total.
The total I have here is the 550s in the 25-26 budget.
Yes, it should have been put in the other year. Sorry about that. So it was, so it
And
has
that-
been moved back in there in the master, just not the one that I'm presenting.
Is that the same for the 1.1 million for Elmer McFadden?
No, those ones are being pushed forward.
Okay.
So you'll see that there's no funding in it.
Just one second. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, thank you for that, Frank. I guess I have a couple of questions about the line 35, the outdoor facilities. I'm coming into a little bit late in this, but first of all, with the current, you're recommending to try an artificial ice system there. Is that the system that we are currently using at Founders Hall? Would it be taken from there and put out into
Brand new one.
that rink?
Buy a brand new one.
Well, no, I'm just asking him the question.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Beck. So yeah, so right now, that's not what we're planning on doing, but if, for example, they didn't want that one at Founders Hall, we could repurpose the chiller unit. The actual portable pipes that go through the actual ice would have to be changed to actually fit another rink because of the rounded corners. But what that actually 700,000 would be is actually purchasing in a new chiller unit, hooking up the Phase 3 electrical, buying the new pipe system. So it's not a cheap endeavor by no means. That's what it's 700,000. There is potential partnership funding that we're working on of 150,000. So that could be a possibility, but
That's not secured?
no, it's not right now. It's just been, how's the word? Someone brought it to my attention that there was a potential for it. I've just received a call that I can submit an application, but I don't know what actually is involved yet. So that is one of those projects. We wanted to try it in one location, and this location is one that has the ability to hook up to Phase 3. We can actually get Phase 3 power there, and it is a highly utilized outdoor rink. So,
Councillor Beck, can we come back? Look,
Well, it's actually kind of tied, my other question is kind of tied to this.
on this issue.
It's tied to this question, so it's kind of a two-part question.
Thank you.
I understood that we had a plan of installing a similar type rink in each of the wards of town. Was that, and again, I'm playing catch-up here because it wasn't part of this planning before, but, you know, as it stands right now, we would have the Gordy Griffin rink. We just put one in Mulberry Park. We have one in West Royalty. There's a new one in conjunction with the Winslow Lions Club. So I think we're at 4.
East Royalty, which is.
One in East Royalty, yes, and McRae Drive. So was this not the plan to go with that? And again, just sort of, I'm trying to understand that.
No, actually.
So Your Worship, through to Councillor Beck. So at one time, there was a councillor or two that mentioned it'd be nice to have them in every ward. Having said that, to be realistic, that wasn't sanctioned by council, but we looked at it, okay, where are they located right now? And we did add a couple more outdoor rinks. So we have the one out in Gordy Griffin was the first one we did, then we did the West Royalty one, we've done the Mulberry one. The Elmer McFadden one needs to be redone, but we sort of removed it from the list this year. We can look at it, pushed it out next year. It all depends on what we want to do. And then we have the one out in Winslow, the Winslow Lions Club built, and we developed a partnership with them, which has worked out well. They, provide the capital infrastructure, and we've assisted them with some operational expense. They have all been highly used to some degree, but as we've built more, we're finding there's less users on the outdoor rinks. So is there a need to have one in every ward? I really we'd have to research that more to see if that's necessary, if it is one to have in every ward.
Councillor McTard, he's been waiting. Councillor McTard.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess where I'm struggling with the Gordy Griffin chiller system is, we just spent 2 hours discussing all the cuts we're going to do at Public Works. You know, I get that it'd be great to have people on the ice till as late as we can per year, but I think, you know, people do get an opportunity to use the ice, and it's all based on weather conditions, simply. You could have went this whole entire year, where we could be done in January. It's a crapshoot. We won't know that. You know, I just look at that, and then, of course, the discussion here, we did talk about potentially other rinks. I was supportive of that in our council, at our committee level. I'm not seeing that here, but, you know, I think if we're looking at the tune of $700,000, they could probably lay down a lot of sidewalks and street resurfacing this year, as opposed to future years, or what we might look at in the years to come with the chillers. You know, and the next one might be Mulberry, you know, or another rink, as that matters. So I'm really struggling with, that's, you know, a big ticket item we have here on a chiller when we're looking to make major cuts.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I'm going to echo Councillor Matars. Oh my goodness, I couldn't remember his last name. I'm sorry. But again, 700,000. You know, we do have one rink that does have the chiller right now. We are in a situation where we're trying to cut. It's not a guaranteed funding partner either. It's potential. I think for me personally, I would be comfortable parking $700,000 on that budget line.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Twill.
Certainly from where I sit, when we started approving these outdoor multi-purpose sports facilities, the consensus was of council to have one constructed in every ward.
Yeah.
It's only fair.
Yeah.
And that we would try to strive towards that objective on an annual basis, to add one or possibly two. Okay? That's no secret. I've made that declaration a number of times, and no one challenged me. That was the understanding. That's why I pushed hard for last year for Mulberry Park. In all fairness to the councillor for that ward, because he was the first one that actually talked about constructing a facility with boards. So I only saw it fitting that we have one in Mulberry Park, and it's well utilized because I'm there all the time looking and watching the usage. So, Councillor Beck, you are correct. That is the aim and objective. I can tell you that I've received a lot of feedback from residents, whether it's my ward or other wards. You know, Councillor Matard, we talked about, you know, if you look at it, let's look at a Ward 2, Ward 4, 3, 5.
Okay.
Where we don't have these facilities. And I can tell you that in some parts of this city, and I'll be candid with everyone in this room, where it's needed the most, the kids aren't getting it in terms of having facilities. So I'm certainly not in favor of this disparity.
Okay.
And it is a disparity. You know, I've talked to many residents and even school officials saying, like, we'd like to have these facilities. We see how they're working in other parts of the city. So, you know, I brought that up at Parks and Recreation to add and another multi-purpose sports facility. You recall that, Councillor Matard?
Yeah.
You were there.
Okay.
And nobody disagreed.
Yeah.
It was put on the docket, but here it is. I look at it now, and you can see it made the shredder.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so,
Thank you.
so I think the point is, I would like to here red flag this and add a new, or add expenditure, red flag it to see what we can do to add a new community for one of these facilities, or maybe even two.
Yeah.
Right,
Councillor Twill,
Mr. Mayor? Because
let's deal with the budget.
no, I know, I'm trying to deal with the budget. Where the purpose of the discussions are to add or delete.
Yeah.
Right?
No. I think what we're doing is we're going through it. We've asked about, there was asked for parking, maybe deferring. So let's just keep going. We know your point.
So,
Councillor Bernard.
But, okay, just to reiterate, Councillor Beck, that was certainly my motivation And when I talked about it here at council on a number of occasions, I didn't have anyone disagree with me.
Okay, thank you.
So, that was the consensus.
Yeah, yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Councilor Bernard. Yeah,
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a comment on it, too. It's 550,000 from the city, it's not 700,000, because there's some partner funding that would be coming through, and if it doesn't come through, it doesn't go ahead. But I do know this, those rinks are not easy to get up and running. And when you lose them, it takes about another week anyway if you have the weather, and Frank could probably comment on that, but it takes quite a while to get it up and going. So, if you're, to me, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of years, we know when Founders Hall, we know it works very good. They get a thaw, it holds the ice, they're usually skating on it that night. So this is something that we were trying to do to see if it wouldn't work for all of them. Now, to say we were going to do 10 or we're going to do, my recollection is when I asked for Gordon Griffin, this facility to be done, it was the first one. And yes, there was a comment about putting one in every ward, but there was also a comment, and I think the direction was we were going to put one in the north, south, east, and west sections of the city. Now, in consultation with Winslow, there was a point when we were trying to build a West Rolling one. We were short, I think $100,000, $150,000. I went and met with the minister at the time responsible for rural development, and we met with Winslow Lions Club. So the Winslow Lions Club were interested. Then it turns out that the minister had found a fund for us to apply to, and I think, Frank, memory was it was paid up to 50%? Anyway, it paid a good amount, so we didn't need, so West Rowley then still wanted to, or not West Rowley, sorry, Winslow still wanted to go ahead and build there. So right now we have 6, if you count Founders Hall, Winslow, West Rowley, East Rowley, Gordy Griffin, Mulberry Park. So, and Frank is right, there's been some talk about the funding. It's just not clear whether it's 150,000 or 200,000. We're not really clear on that amount yet. So, so that's kind of where it's at right now. So it's the 550, and
okay, thank you.
The only other thing I'd add, or so that people aren't aware, I know the study was done a long time ago, but there was a study done, and it talked about the amount of kids in Hillsborough Park in that geographical area is the most amount of kids per geographical area anywhere in the city. So it gets used a lot, and when it's down, you know it. So that's why it'd be nice to get this installed, and then it's something you can look at for all the others, because they're going to see if it works or doesn't work. So,
Okay,
anyway.
thank you. Councilor McCabe, let's just wrap this up
Yeah, I'm
because,
wrapping it up. I would like, if you're going to look at other things within 700,000, though, you can see that there's like an outdoor basketball court. There's different sports that we could look
Yeah.
at rather than spending 700,000 on just another chiller for a hockey rink. So I'd prefer to see a more of an expansion to meet our diverse population and some of their needs as well.
and I think, I hear it, there is a general feeling to park it, and that's what I put here, park it going forward. That's what I mean. Yeah, we know about the 10 parks. Let's go to the next, it's called sport facilities. Okay, let's go to the next land improvement, J. Frank McCauley, Phase 1, Phase 2.
Yeah,
Wanna go
so
over
your
those?
worship, so the last ones that are left here in council are, and I'm just going to touch on the one that's 650,000. And a lot of the other ones are smaller projects. One is the J. Frank McCauley, Phase 1 and Phase 2. We've actually awarded Phase 1, and we're just saying, when we got the contractor there, let's do Phase 2. It's going to be more affordable. And then that'll be done, and I won't have to worry about that project again. The other one, the large one here, is actually the East Rowley Landfill Old Road Restoration and AT Pathway. So we do have the funding right now. We received $225,000 in funding from the AT fund. And this project, just to give you a bit of history, it started the Wrights Creek Bridge Replacement Project, was completed in July of 2022. To enable the road in the park to be used by the public, it needs to be upgraded and expanded to include an AT pathway. These upgrades will enable public access to the Parkman Soccer Complex, the Acadian Forest and Trails, the East Rowley Park itself, once it's actually up and going, and the neighborhood of East Rowley. Right now, you'll see Hillsborough and East Rowley are disconnected on that area, so this will allow access in through there. This redesign of the road includes the resurfacing of a large section of the road, 600 meters, constructing a gravel driveway for the remaining 450 meters, and constructing a 1.8 meter AT pathway along the full length. In December, and I just so you know, we made the application over 2 periods. We received 150 the first time, and then we received $75,000 for the second phase. We were unable to commence in 2023 due to site complications, and as you realize, it's next to the East Valley landfill site, so right there is one of the major complications we struggle with. Right now, we feel comfortable. We've engaged professional services to complete the design drawings, the tender documents. We anticipate it going out in late April, early May, awarding in May, and then construction occurring starting May, early June. So. And it is actually net funded to the city is $425 versus the $650 that the project's going to cost.
Okay, Frank, could
Can
we
I
just...
just one comment, Mayor
Yeah,
Brown?
yeah, just,
one quick.
Councillor Drawn, just 1 second. Frank, could you just
Sure.
loop in Beach Development Federation? Because we're coming down to the end. Can you just give us a... And then Councillor Drawn, you can ask your question. Hold on.
Thank you.
Just your beach, I think.
So the last areas there, Beach Development, Confederation Landing, we were pushing that out to next year. The one that's in there is the Charlottetown Yacht Club. There was a request received from the Yacht Club to the Strategic Priorities Committee, and then it came to our committee, which our committee supported bringing forward during budget discussions. But this is the overall project is the seawall restoration, and it's an actual, I think, a $5.5 million project. They're receiving a large funding from ACOA, and then they're also receiving some other partnership funding. They're asking a portion from us, their shortfall, they're asking $318. What this will allow us that we will actually have, we have a public slip there right now where we have an actual docking system that people can launch canoe, kayak, and those kind of things. This will allow us to enter into a longer agreement for, say, 15 years, and we would have that access to that area and make sure there's a public slip there.
Okay, Councillor Drawn, we're going to just wrap those two up. Your question is about what, the Macaulay Park?
The whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing in general. I just want to know, like, when a manager sits down, does he just consider projects that, someone might ask about, or does he really think that, these projects are going to too much in one ward? I know you might not sit down and say, listen, I'm going to put it all in Councillor Tweel's ward or something like that. The wards probably don't make any difference, but we're elected to represent the thoughts of our constituents. So when a councillor gets elected, you hope to get a little bit from each budget. And I'm just saying, it should be fair. Every councillor should get a certain part. So a park in West Royalty, this year, that'd be great. Give them to West Royalty. Next year could go to East Royalty. The third year, go to somewhere else, downtown. But when I consistently see is certain budgets go in certain areas, whether there's many kids in that area or maybe it's more seniors in this area. But it should reflect a base pace of all the city. Everybody gets a little bit. But don't put a large amount in one area. Like I said, I go back to Councillor Tweel when we started this 5, 6, 7 years ago about the outdoor rinks. One was going to go in every ward, that's what we thought at the time. So we had to wait. The projects went into one area first. Okay, then you had to wait another year and another and another. So eventually it comes around. But what I'm seeing in certain budgets and certain capital projects is they're not being spread evenly throughout the city. And it's very frustrating when you sit there and you look at, whether it's, it gets me so upset when everything is going to one area. And all I'm asking, and I've said it many times before, let's just try to make it fair. That's all I want is fairness, and I can agree on anything. But when it's not fair, I can't agree. So, the budget process, I know we're rushed, we're stressed out, but the budget process is to sit down as a council and say, okay, yes, we can go with this one. No, we can't go with that one. And consistently, just make it fair. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
And thank you for the 30 seconds to put my point in.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Councilor Tart.
Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. I think it's important to note that, we did receive a request from Charlottetown Yacht Club very late in the process, which was after we deliberated our capital budget at our committee level. And it did come to us last week in a special meeting, and I'll just say that both Councillor Tweel and I and the mayor were in attendance for that, and we agreed to move it forward as was indicated, however, not at the detriment of other programs and capital that we had put forward. It's interesting to see it there tonight. Not to say not supportive of it. There was lots of great rationale as to why we would contribute to that, and our ownership and stake in the usage of that, the slip and other areas around there. Again, I'm just going back to, I see some things that are not on here. And that. So I think it's important to note that that was addressed at our committee meeting, and, feel free to watch that. There's more information on what's actually in that package.
Good
So,
point there,
so to the manager, I'm sure you deliberated that and came out and found that that was a priority for your department.
Good point there, Councilor Tart. Councilor Beck.
Yeah, just 2 points. The first one is on the yacht club. For me, it's not so much about Charlottetown Yacht Club, it's about the surrounding infrastructure that we have. I'm glad to see that we are going to be increasing our access for entry points for not only recreational pursuits, but also the firecraft, I think, or the fireboat or whatever it was that's going to be having a launching there. So there are some additional things that come in. The other part about it too is that the funding agreement, and I guess this is why what I think should be noted here is that this is not just a $318,000 project. This is a $5.5 million project, and I think the funding partnership, there's a significant funding piece that's coming with this. I think if someone is to look at this as an outside observer, they look at it and they say, why is the city giving the Charlottetown Yacht Club $318,000? When I don't think it truly reflects the whole nature of the scope of the work. When you look at the whole entire project, it's preserving a significant amount of our waterfront. And we have CADC properties. CADC is a partner funding in this as well too. If the yacht club goes, and we're exposing our other infrastructure in behind us. This comes from Fiona funding. I think it's an opportunity to build on Fiona funding that's available. And I guess for me, if we're looking at this right now, $318,000 could be a drop in the bucket compared to what a potential cost could be down the road if we were to have a much more serious disaster. And it's been proven that I think when you do mitigation strategies, it can be upwards of 25 times the cost of what the original thing is. So I think it should be there. I'm supportive of the project, but I think it should be clarified that there is a significant funding partner agreement coming in here, because I think that more clearly reflects the scope of the project and the funding partner that's coming with it.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to see that noted in there.
Yeah.
One other question I had. Sorry.
It's 6:45.
Yep.
We have to leave because the technical people have.
I can ask my other question,
Yeah,
Frank,
so
after.
I think we cannot finish it tonight. We have to come back.
No.
The point that you're making about the yacht club, point could be made about the Confederation Centre also as a major capital project for the city. So I need to, you know what, we'll have to go into recess, and then we'll come out of recess on Wednesday to continue on this project. No, we're going into recess, so, which means we stop now. And then come Wednesday, when we come back at, is it 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock? Is it possible to come back at 4 o'clock? Can't do that. Julie's in school. No, just go into recess. Yeah.
Starts at 5, so do you want it for 4?
Can we?